All right, between Sphinx and now this one, we're just getting people from across the world. It's great.
Very
international. Yeah, where is Sphinx from? Is he Australian?
He's Australian, I believe.
Yeah.
But he's very elusive. He's very evasive about where he's from for no good reason. He's like fucking Makami. He just like spreads.
I thought that's kind of like a pretty common trait of RYMers though, like saying they're from somewhere and then like not really specifying where. I don't know.
No, that does happen, but it's a little easier like in the States, I guess. Like proximity-wise, to just be like, okay, if you're from New York, you're probably from one of like 10 areas or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas you're from Australia, I mean, that's a gigantic continent, so.
I mean, my frame of reference for Australia is pretty much just stuff that I've heard from Seaside. Apparently, bogan is a really like offensive thing you can say about Australians if you say somebody's a bogan.
Yeah. There's bogans in New Zealand too. Like it's that part of the world kind of thing. So, yeah.
Like a bogan would be like sort of like a MAGA chud in America.
Yeah, kind of like the equivalent of like trailer trash, I suppose. Is what you'd consider like a bogan. Yeah. But they differ, like Australian bogans, New Zealand bogans. There's slight differences too. I don't know. It's a crazy world out there, man.
Yeah, Australia versus New Zealand. What's like the perception of, like, is there any? I don't know how like the. I know that originally, this has got to be forever ago, right? But like people in the UK like didn't fuck with Australia, and that's how like Australia was like even created.
Well, Australia's like historically, it's where they like lots of convicts were sent to. Like that's how they established Australia as we know it. So, but the relationship between New Zealand and Australia, it's kind of similar to like Canada and the States.
Okay.
Where, I don't know, like I suppose New Zealand's kind of in a way looked at as like an underdog, you know, in Australia's shadow a little bit. I suppose that's one of the like main perceptions.
There's a great episode of Flight of the Conchords where Aziz Ansari plays a racist grocer.
Oh, it's so good, man. I love the episode.
Who won't sell them an apple because he thinks they're Australian. But then he finds out they're New Zealand and that's okay.
Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock ticks faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick 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 faster. Living off borrowed time, the clock tick
Welcome to the Living Off Borrowed Time podcast, an ongoing conversation about hip-hop. I am your host, Patrick, joined as mostly always by my co-host, Caleb, OptimalAudio and RYM. Joined this week by resident Makami and presumably Roc Marciano expert, Thoughtfoul, who this week is going to be talking about Roc Marciano, as you could probably guess by the intro. As once again, I completely do a terrible intro. But Thoughtfoul, welcome to the show.
Thank you for getting me on. I'm glad we could finally line it up. I'm sorry that I couldn't have done it earlier, but, you know.
Well, I mean, we have more internet, like, once again, like our recent guest, Battered Sphinx, past few episodes, he's been on twice. We have an international flavor again going on here. We were debating prior to recording about New Zealand versus Australia.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dox Sphinx because, you know, he's very loose about where he's from, but, you know, clearly a lot of thorny issues there between the two.
Yeah.
You were saying there's like a USA-Canada thing going on. I think both would probably consider the other Canada.
Yeah, that's probably a fair way. I don't know. I feel like Australia doesn't really. I don't know, man. It's that's a whole other episode.
that is a whole other episode. We'll do that for the Avondale Bowling Club episode.
All right. So,
of which there's going to be 1 or 2 releases to talk about.
Well, they have a live album.
Okay.
So we're just play the shit from the first album.
Right.
Yeah, they recently played in the capital in New Zealand for like a jazz fest. They played at one of the opera houses, and apparently it was awesome. So,
I mean, they're good. I would talk about them. We could talk about one of the most asinine RYM threads ever, where it was like somebody got offended. The dude was was hiding his New Zealand accent.
He totally isn't though. Like that's the whole thing about Tom Scott is like he got this reputation for rapping in his New Zealand accent. Like, so reading that was really weird for me. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're going to tell me, like, a New Zealander, this dude doesn't sound like a New Zealander when he clearly does? It's real strange.
Clearly, you would be the expert on that, as opposed to some dude from America commenting on that, who's just commenting.
Yeah, I think that dude was from the UK. So I mean, there's lots of New Zealanders in the UK, but I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah.
Strange.
It was a weird complaint to have, and the thread was very annoying. But we're talking about somebody who does not have, who will not ever be mistaken for faking an accent from where they're from, Roc Marciano.
Yep.
And yeah, that was a pretty forced transition.
But we do have the best transitions in the game, so like, you know, it worked out. Like,
I mean, I have a lot of pressure on myself, like, you know, to have great transitions to make up for my terrible intros.
Right,
Yeah,
you have to live up. Yeah, you have to live up to the hype of like, okay, we know he's gonna botch the intro in a new creative way each week. So how is he gonna nail the transitions this time to make up for it?
Well, when you hear the Danny Brown episode, the Triple X episode, I actually have a good intro for that one, and you'll hear that the intro I did this week will make more sense, and then you'll realize how badly I botched it this week. But anyway, so Roc Marciano. When was the first time y'all heard Roc Marciano?
For me, it was in 2011, I think. I think Marcberg had came out. That was kind of during my. I feel like a few people have, you know, been through this. They're like real hip hop, you know, fuck Lil Wayne kind of phase, which is kind of embarrassing to reflect on.
That's
but
a recurring theme I've noticed with guests, by the way, is everybody has this real dusty head hip hop phase, and a lot of times. Yeah. It involves, like, you know, direct reaction against Lil Wayne specifically. Like, GOZ is still in that phase, actually.
I don't think he's ever going to leave that phase. I think there's a subset of the community that I think came in that phase and is just going to stay in that phase. Like, I think it's just like a part of, not necessarily a generational thing, but when you got into hip hop, maybe. Because I think that might be, if you got into hip hop in the, you know, late 90s, early 2000s or what have you, and you kind of watched it, you know, evolve in many different phases, and you didn't like, at least on a popular level, like what it evolved into, then I feel like it's different when you grow up with it. Like, I grew up with a lot of, just when hip hop was like really, really modernizing via the internet is when I grew up with it. So I'm kind of like, I told Patrick this in the show before. I never really went through the dusty phase. Like, I went through phases where I would only listen to like older stuff, you know, stuff from pre 21st century, but it was never a, like, fuck this other kind of hip hop phase.
Yeah.
Well, Roc, I would say, kind of appeals directly to that sort of niche fan. Yeah. But he also does a lot of shit that's like a lot stranger than that. So, like, he's not like Terminology or doing like Static Select. Like, I could never picture Roc doing like a Static Selecta collab album. Although it probably would be dope if he did. But that just doesn't seem like, whatever he does it with a level of craftsmanship and detail and personality that's more than just being like a throwback tribute act, even though his style is very much a throwback to a specific time and place. And his style, like, on its face, he's clearly just doing an old, like, a nostalgic style of rap. But having listened to his whole discography as homework for the episode, you realize that he's like improving upon it and evolving it a lot. In the way he structures and writes, and his style is too, because he started off a lot more conventional than he would become, like with the UN stuff.
Yeah.
So, but the first time I heard, well, you didn't really finish talking. I'll let you finish talking.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, so I used to frequent that forum UGHH, undergroundhiphop.com, which is at the time an absolute cesspool, but Marcberg was getting a lot of hype at the time. And I think the first song I heard was Pop, which is not really reflective of his overall sound. It's like, very like drum heavy. And then I think I don't think I heard the whole album. I think it was around 2013, which I actually started making an effort, and then I got into Marcberg after the Pimpfire Strikes Back tape, which was free, I think.
Yeah, that was free. Yeah.
And then from there, I just became obsessive. So yeah, that's my story, I guess.
And Optimal, where you went?
Yeah, I think I came into rock. Well, first of all, the point about Roc Marciano being an artist that attracts like dust. Just look no further than a lot of the comment sections on his YouTube videos, which are truly hilarious. In just the way that people go out of their way to just like praise his music at the expense of just like hip hop in general. Like it's the whole, hip hop is trash sentiment, but this shit's still keeping it alive. Like,
yeah, there's a lot of that.
There's a lot of that.
Real hip hop shit. This ain't that radio shit. This ain't Lil Uzi Vert. This is.
Right. It's just like pick one rapper that you can think of off the top of your head, because like they don't really know that many of them, like from that are like popular, but they're just like, I heard this one. But yeah, I think I heard Roc for the first time via the website. I hadn't heard him prior to like 2016. I heard Reloaded was the first one I had heard, and it was at the recommendation of probably via like just being on the hip hop board on RYM, and I ended up going to like listen to Reloaded, and I kind of really liked it, but I sort of put the rest of his discog on the back burner, and then later in the year, like maybe early mid 2017, I got into, because I heard Rosebudd's Revenge was the second album I heard, and then I dove into like the rest of his stuff at that point, and then have subsequently followed him with each release. But I think Reloaded I really fucked with, and then I heard Rosebudd's Revenge, and I really fucked with that. And then I kind of went from there. And, there was also like when Rosebudd's Revenge came out, that was when a lot of like, I think a lot of, not mainstream, but just like underground adjacent people kind of noticed Roc Marciano, because that he had like the Dead and Hip Hop cosigns and stuff like that. So he was getting like a little more attention.
Well, the way I heard him first off was way back in 2007 when Wu-Tang versus the Indie Culture came out. I didn't even know who he was.
Crazy.
I didn't even know who he was, and I didn't really rate his verse that much because I mainly listened to that album for the MCs that I knew already. I didn't really have too much time for the ones that I mainly listened to it for Jizza and Razkaz together, Jizza and RZA together, like Bastair, Vordel. Even Vordel's on that song. Vordel gets completely washed by Roc Marciano. I can't believe I would say that Vordel had my favorite verse on that if you asked me. But, there's no way. Roc's verse on that's nuts. But at the time, his voice wasn't that distinctive to me. At that point, his voice is somewhere halfway between where he was with the UN and where he would be with Marcberg. I always have trouble pronouncing it. Marcberg / Reloaded, I think, is really where he hones his modern voice. Because I think there's two separate stages of his career. But that's when I first heard him. Then I heard Marcberg when it got a lot of hype on the smoking section when it dropped. Weiss, I think, gave it a lot of hype. It definitely ended up pretty high on the Passion of the Weiss end of the year list. And it didn't really move me that much. I thought what it was doing was really good for what it was doing, but it seemed like a tribute act to me, which contrary to what I said about him earlier. But that album specifically, it's the beats sound like DJ Premier, Group Home era type stuff. The rapping's really cold punchline and dusty, but is well executed, but it's felt kind of, I don't know, hollow. But Roc kept showing up on other rappers that I liked more shit. Mainly like Action Bronson. He showed up on the first track of Blue Chips, Pouches of Tuna. That's a great fucking song. He showed, like, I got into Ka around the same time, and Roc and Ka always worked together. And that gave me more of an appreciation. We'll talk about their pairings too as we go on through Roc's discography. And eventually, and there's a Lucy that we're going to talk about called Poltergeist. That was something that came out around the same time as the singles for Reloaded. That's when I really started rating Roc as an artist and checking for him all the time. And then Reloaded was what sold me on him entirely. That album hit really hard. I'll explain why when we get to it. And I guess all of this, I was coming to it like from a more chronologically, probably a little sooner than you guys, like as it happened. So versus like it seems like you guys were coming to it a little, and that's not trying to say like, oh, I was on board before, because clearly I wasn't, because I had Wu-Tang versus the indie culture for years, and I couldn't pick his verse out of a lineup until I really learned to distinguish his voice.
Right.
But yeah, I guess we started. Oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say that song has such an odd lineup. Hey, it's him, Vordal Mega, Tragedy, Gaddafi, and is it Casual from Is it Casual or is it someone else like that? But yeah, it's just a really like odd kind of grouping, but I guess it works. Like,
well, that's kind of that album's whole concept, is that it puts together like, I don't know who the Wu-Tang is on that song though. Like it's supposed to be like you have a Wu-Tang or Wu-Tang adjacent rapper and a bunch of indie rappers, like Jizza and Raz Kaz made sense, Doom and RZA makes sense, but then you would just have like a bunch of indie rappers over like a Bronze Nazareth beat or a Fourth Disciple beat, and it still works pretty well. Like that's a pretty good album. I like the album, but I guess starting from the beginning with Roc, he was associated with Flipmode at the beginning, I believe. Like you are the expert, I would say. You can take the reins on his his career.
Yeah, sure. So I think his first appearance on Wax is The Prophecy, which is from 97. And it would have been one of those tracks that would have been really popular. Well, not really popular, but would have got, a bit of airtime on Stretch and Bobbito. So it's just like a pretty typical kind of independent East Coast song, right? Where there's like no real regard for having like a certain bar structure. It's just like you just keep rapping and rapping and rapping, and then the next guy will jump in kind of thing. But then I guess I don't know what he was doing in between that, but then sometime I think either in like 99 or 2000 was when Busta Rhymes like recruited him into Flipmode, because I think even before that actually there's another thing where there's a Busta Rhymes song over a Dilla beat with a Biggie verse and a Roc verse as well, or like I got
not told about this, man. This is always like the guests always make me look bad. They normally don't. They normally wait a little while before they make me look bad. Drop the shit right away. Come on, the fuck?
Yeah,
like what is it called? I need to find this.
Oh man, you'll be able to find it.
Or is it just like a Biggie verse that was used elsewhere?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so. I'm just trying to think when that would probably be. When did Biggie die? 97?
97, yeah.
Yeah, so it must have been like around the similar time to The Prophecy or thereabouts. Because from what I understand, like Roc has said that growing up he was kind of around the Bomb Squad, or like, members of the Bomb Squad, going to kind of studios and kind of observing things. So he was like already kind of had some connections before he had music out, and I guess Busta Rhymes would have taken notice and then kind of recruited him into Flipmode. But I don't think the Flipmode stuff really resulted in much music. The only track I can think of is The Heist on the Busta Rhymes Anarchy album.
Doesn't that also have Ghost and Raekwon on it?
Yeah, and it's like a concept track, like a bank robbery type thing, where they all kind of have a different role in the track. And then
that's like Ghost always does really well with those tracks. That's also like Yolanda's House on Big Doe Rehab. That's like Ghost, Raekwon, and Method Man. 3 different stories about like being like how they're all with the same girl and in the same house, and what happens with like they each pick up the end of the story. And they Ghost and Ray have a bunch of songs like that. So I always kind of associated Roc with like Wu-Tang more than anything. So it's interesting he came up with Flipmode, but that song like is probably part of why I would associate him with, because that's also one of the first songs of his I heard where I never really associated him with the guy that would get all the hype.
Right.
But I do recall hearing that song specifically on like a Ghost, probably on like one of the Hidden Darts tapes, maybe like those Ghostface compilations. If anyone's familiar with those, there were like 4 of them.
Yeah, well, one of those, is it the Vatican mixtapes that Raekwon
that was Raekwon, and that's actually interesting too because I think that was all hosted by J Love, who did do a tape with Roc Marciano.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
which
one
I
of the
actually
most annoying DJs of all time. Anyway, shout out to J Love, you fucking suck. I don't know if there's ever any. I forget. I didn't actually listen to the Roc tape for this one. I've heard it in the past, but does he try and rap on that one? Because there is one. Because he tries to rap on the Action Bronson tape, and it's oh my! He makes Khaled look like a good rap, like an actual rapper. As far as like DJs who don't actually do anything rapping go, DJ Khaled is 10 times the rapper J Love is.
I haven't actually heard that tape, and I think, probably because I looked at the track listing and I was like, oh, it's just stuff from Marcberg or thereabouts. So, I probably don't want to have J Love yelling in between the tracks as well. I don't know. I wouldn't surprise me if he has a verse though, because do you remember kind of early on with Action Bronson, he was in that group or like the collective The Outdoorsmen, where it was like him, Mayhem, Shaz Ill York, AG the Coroner, and someone else. Like there was like a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, I remember that.
J Love like hosts their shit too. So, and then that's when he would have been trying to rap with them, which was pretty awful. But
yeah, J Love actually had a pretty good like ear for who was going to blow up in terms of, because Bronson blew up in a completely different way than Marciano blew up. But that was way, way later. This was back in the turn of and I actually decided to bring up the Flipmode squad roster, because this is something we do on the show sometimes, is we go through the RYM page, and I know it's not exactly exhaustive. Sometimes RYM gets shit wrong, but I like to look at these whole crews and see who exactly we remember who did anything from this crew. Flipmode squad members: Baby Sham, 97 to 2008. Who the fuck? Busta Rhymes, MC producer, 96 to present, obviously. Chauncey Black, vocals, 2004 to 09. I did not even know Flipmode was a thing, like past like 2002, really, but I guess it was. DJ Scratch, producer, 96 to 2009. Laba. Most of these people have RYM pages too, which makes me think they have like solo projects. 2003 to 2007. Lord Have Mercy, 96 to 2000. M Dollars, 2003 to 07. Mika, 97 to 03. Papoose.
Wow.
Papoose for 1 year. He was only in Flipmode from 2006 to 07. That's like a shorter run than Busta had with Cash Money. Raw Digga, 97 to 07. Rampage, 96 to 06. I remember Rampage vaguely. Like, he actually is kind of, I feel like he might not be bad. Reek the Villain.
He came back a couple of years ago. Like, he was going to have a reality TV show at one point.
Yeah, his name actually seems to ring more bells than like a lot of the other weed carrier people on this roster. Reek the Villain, 2006 to 09. Roc Marciano, 99 to 01. Sirius, 1997. Show Money, 2007 to present. I love that we have till present, by the way. I guess there were Flipmode people on like the current Bust album. Spliff Star, 96 to present. Spliff Star, I think, was the origin of the term weed carrier. Whoever came up with it, I think it was Buck Crawford. Because Spliff Star is literally named after his job, which is just to carry the main act weed.
He's like music. He's weed guy in all the music videos and everything.
He's like weed guy number 2 in like a Hype Williams video. Which is like a credit. He doesn't even get an artist credit. Spliff Star never put out an album. He did put out 2 mixtapes, though. Let the Streets Decide and One Shot Willie.
Let the Streets Decide.
Willie has a pretty great cover on it, I would say. There are no reviews or ratings for this.
This is the ongoing tradition of us critiquing mixtape album covers and pairing them against each other.
Yeah, right now we have like one of the all-time winners is probably Gravy as Mayor Goonberg, I believe, goes to Africa. It's baffling.
Wow.
It's gonna be tough to knock off that one.
I mean, the OJ the Juice Man had a long stretch of great mixtape covers too. If you want to look those up.
True.
What's that Gucci Mane one where he's like getting thrown out of the window? I think he reviewed it recently, Pat.
Or you get thrown out of a window.
Something. What was it?
I mean, like there are plenty of classic Gucci ones where there's one where he's eating at IWOP instead of IHOP.
I do love that one.
And of course, El Gato, the human glacier.
Oh, the human glacier. Dude, that one is so good.
You know what's crazy about that one as well? Do you guys know that album by OGC, The Storm? Like the Beatminers produced Bootcamp Click album?
I know the name, but I couldn't place any music off of it.
Because the cover of that is like all of their three faces on like a cliff face, and there's like these big waves coming, and it's kind of like, in a way, the precursor to that Gucci Mane one.
I mean, that Gucci cover almost strikes me as something Lil B would do.
Oh, definitely.
Like, for one of his like based spoken word, Rain in England, Dior Paint style projects.
7-hour mixtape.
I wonder if Gucci's book has an audiobook. I need to hear Gucci read his autobiography to me.
Oh man, that'd be amazing.
It should have ad-libs.
Oh, absolutely. It has to have ad-libs. You can't have a Gucci biography without ad-libs. I'm still looking for this mixtape cover art.
For the Gravy one, or?
No, the Gucci one.
Oh, the Gucci getting thrown out of a window?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to find it. I do love the Gucci, the Burr print 3D. It's a great cover art.
Oh,
I might be remembering it incorrectly, but it was one that you said is really weird. Like, there's lots of really baffling tracks on it, even, I suppose, by Gucci.
Oh, the Gooch. I think you're thinking of the
Gooch. Yeah, that was the one, yeah.
The Gooch, yeah, I found it.
Amazing in general. Shout out to Sophia Phantom. We were originally going to do December for Gucci, but we had scheduling problems, like too many episodes, actually. So I think we might do February instead for Gucci. So
I just want to say, Patrick, your review that leads off with LOL is an incredible. The description of the song, it's basically Trey Songz reading through an Internet Cliches for Dummies book in 2009. It's an amazing sentence.
I'm not doing it justice. That instrumental makes less sense than most of the clown music we listen to in the ICP episode.
I have to listen to this mixtape. I remember you guys talking about it.
He goes over a 3-6 Mafia ballad.
Yes, let's go. I mean, wait.
Did you know there were 3-6 Mafia ballads? I think that has Carrie Hilson on it too.
Gosh. That was from the really bad 3-6 era.
Yeah, that was from the dark times.
Yeah, the dark times. Yeah, the last to walk era.
Yeah, I think that might be more baffling than the Tiesto song.
Tiesto is on the mixtape.
The Gooch?
Oh no, he's not. He's not. I genuinely thought Gucci had a Tiesto feature on.
No, but what else does he have on there? He goes over part of.
He goes over "Obsessed" with Mariah Carey.
Oh
right?
yeah, he goes over the entirety of "Obsessed" with Mariah Carey. Like, that's interesting.
He goes over "Boom Boom Pow," the Black Eyed Peas song.
He goes over one part of "Boom Boom Pow."
What the fuck?
Yeah. Why not?
He
does like several sarcastic Lil Wayne impressions. Like Lollipop era Lil Wayne impressions for no apparent reason. It's a really impressive tape. I really recommend everybody listen to The Gooch by Gucci Mane, which is not a Roc Marciano release, but if you listen to anything, it should be The Gooch by Gucci Mane.
This is a great cover art, though. I will give you that. This cover art fucking.
There's
rules.
also a Gucci cover art for called "Buy My Album," where it's just a stand-up of him with a text almost saying "Buy My Album." It's like a cardboard stand-up of Gucci saying "Buy My Album."
Oh, I found it. Oh my god, there it is.
I need to make a physical of that, where it's just like a cardboard cutout with like a recorder inside of it or something, like.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen The Critic, but there's a gag where the Jay Sherman character has like a book, like one of those things, but it's for his book, and it just goes, "Buy my book, buy my book. It gets louder and more obnoxious each time. So I'd like to find that Gucci one that does that. But it's like, oh, buy my album. And just like you ad-libbing at you.
I've come across Gucci Time 2, Gucci 2 Time. I don't know. I don't know if it's a real mixtape cover art, but it's Gucci, and it's under the time. There's like a clock symbol, and it's Gucci holding his watch, which is reflecting light back at you.
I mean,
Did Gucci? Was it Gucci or Rich Homie or both, who had that tape that was just called Trust God Fuck 6?
Yeah, Gucci is just an incredible discog, incredible moments throughout his discog.
Episodes are we're gonna have to do a whole month to get through his entire discography.
Oh my god, it's gonna be an ongoing. First of all, we have so many episodes in the can that we can't even get to Gucci because we have a bunch before. But his is gonna take. I mean, that's a whole season right there.
Yeah.
That's not Charles Hamilton level, but it's,
Charles Hamilton. Yeah, we'll never complete that because he just dropped 50 while he was in quarantine. I was going to do a Charles Hamilton segment for this episode, but I, as usual, decided I didn't get through enough stuff for it. I actually did listen to some things for it, but not. I figured there's enough Roc Marciano stuff. We haven't actually started talking about it.
Sure, we probably should start. Probably so we don't have
as usual. We got bogged down into looking at mixtape cover art and. What is this called? Goochsomnia, addicted to Gucci? What the fuck is this?
Okay, so Gucci 2 times.
So this is definitely not official or sanctioned, but it's worth seeing.
Gucci 2 Time is also a real mixtape that happened. There are a million features, most of them from Papa Smurf.
Well, I mean, he went from hanging out with Papa Smurf to hanging out with what the fuck is that guy's name? The worst rapper in it. It's like something with doo-doo in it, or what the fuck? Like Pooh Shiesty.
Pooh Shiesty, yes.
Pooh Shiesty. Did Pooh Shiesty and Shorty shit saying you've a collab?
See, I made a reference to Shorty shit stain before on this podcast, and he didn't know who I was talking about.
Oh man. He's got that great verse on Pretty Unique too, where it sounds like he's crying, like
Ghostface when I can't go to sleep, but not quite that good.
Oh man, what a video!
But real quick, before we'll get back to Roc, guys. The Goochsomnia, addicted to Gucci mixtape cover. It is Gucci. It is a drawing of. It looks like an oil painting of Gucci in a creepy room with a 1017 Brick Squad calendar. Old timey TV that's like somehow like black and white, but it has like a green fuzz on it. There's like a creepy doll. The Gucci that's drawn here is making like the Burr face or one of the constipated Gucci face, and he's in a straitjacket. I don't know why he's in a straitjacket in this house and not in like a mental institution, but we're like mixing 5 or 6 horror movie tropes here. It's really impressive.
It's just a lot going on.
And now I'm looking at the track list, and it has like, I don't know if this is like, maybe it is official. It's got a track with Pharrell that I've never heard of, a track with Cameron that I've never heard of.
There's no way.
A track called Smooches featuring Sean Garrett. That's not promising.
I'm just in awe of this mix. I'm still.
Who's never made a song called Smooches though? He has sampled a smooch on one of his songs. Is Roc Marciano.
We do need to talk about it, or else this will be a 3-hour podcast.
I mean, it's probably going to end up being a 3-hour podcast anyway.
Some of us have to get to sleep at a normal hour. Some of us have work in.
Yeah, well, I had to do that before once too.
True, so, that's true.
You got to make the sacrifices. So, and Roc Marciano sacrificed by being on a major label with Flipmode Squad, which wasn't a great fit for him. But it did allow him. So basically, the UN album came out in 2006? Because I thought it came out in
2004.
2004. I thought it came out in like 2000 when I first was thinking about it, but then I'm listening to it and they're making references to like LeBron on it and shit. So clearly,
and also there's stuff before that because they were doing stuff with Pete Rock. I think they're on one of the Pimpstrumentals.
Yes. That I forgot to find that shit. I mean, I think I've heard that shit before when I was going through like a Pete Rock binge, but I didn't find it for this episode. So I may have heard that in the past.
Yeah, so I guess like I don't know, early 2000s was kind of busy for Rock, right? Because he was doing Flipmode, kind of doing Flipmode stuff, and then UN stuff, and then I suppose features on Pete Rock albums, and then of course Wu meets indie culture. So yeah,
well, I guess what project should we talk about first? Should we talk about what came first, Strength and Honor, or You In or You Out?
I believe You In or You Out, but maybe they weren't like that far apart. Like it was like a few months or something. Yeah, so I don't know. I suppose, was this your first time listening to You In or You Out, or?
Yeah, I think this was. I think there was maybe one or two tracks I'd heard on like compilations or something that had come up because one or two sounded familiar, although I can't place them right now. As a whole, this is the first time I'd heard it. I was impressed overall.
Yeah,
although
it's just it's a good like hardcore East Coast record. Like there wasn't a whole lot of that at the time. It was like them, Screwball, and I don't know. I suppose like Sean Price stuff. But 2004, I suppose, wasn't really a big time for that kind of sound.
I mean, what I would compare it to a little bit was parts of it reminded me of Frank and Dank, kind of, but more lyrical. Okay. Or maybe something like Gravediggers, but more like less jokey.
Okay.
I definitely thought Roc was the most standout of the MCs. Yep. Like if I listened to it, even not going into it as a rock project, I'd be like, this guy is the one who stands out. The others are certainly not bad. One kind of has the next vibe. I want to say Dino Brave.
Yeah, definitely Dino Brave. I can't really tell Larko and Mike Raw apart very well, typically.
Yeah, the other two kind of blend together. They don't have like bad verses or anything. Yeah. They all have good chemistry together. There are a few. This is definitely the most rappery Roc Marciano performance I heard. This and the mixtape. Yeah. Like, he has parts on this that are kind of almost super lyrical miracle. He pulls it off though. Like, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's really aggressive. And on as It Ain't No Thing, he's got that whole scheme where it's like the Ron L. Hubbard of rhyme, punish, abuse, and he just like goes off, and it's there's lots of like venom in his voice.
One thing where he talks, like the line where he name drops David Berkowitz. I forgot what song.
Yeah.
That one definitely felt like I couldn't really remember any other recent song in the past decade or so where he really just kind of spools off like that. He definitely feels way more aggressively battle rap, like the relaxed persona, like the relaxed, almost monotone persona, the like carefully crafted. That doesn't seem to be so much his approach yet. Like you can tell with the punchlines, the writing style is like very much where he would like already formed, but the delivery is different. And it's still good, and it's still good, but I prefer where he would go later.
And also, it's got good production on there. It's got large pro beats. It's got Pete Rock, and it's like dark Pete Rock. Like it's.
Oh yeah.
I kind of likened it to like Pete Rock's take on like 95 RZA, like on Game of Death. That sounds like a RZA beat to me.
Interesting. Yeah, I could see. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good analog for it. Like the Wu-Tang. Like I hear the Wu-Tang influences for sure. Like generally. My read on Roc for the longest time was that he was kind of a modern Raekwon in the same way that like when he like people will call Bronson a modern Ghostface, and that's kind of a superficial read just because their voices sound alike. But stylistically, he could be that way for a while, his early stuff at least. And I kind of thought of Marciano as kind of a modern day Raekwon in the same way. But I think Raekwon's more story oriented, whereas Roc is more like Roc's more punchline oriented, I would say, than Raekwon.
And what did you think of his beats on this album? He's only got 3: Golden Grail, the second track, and one other one. Is it Get Your Shit or something? Golden Grail is like the standout because it's like you'll never hear have drums.
That's loud. That's one of the best beats on there. Who did the There's one song that has whistling on it that I don't really like in terms of because I don't really like whistling. That's one of the ones.
Is that Get Your Money one or Russian Hatwear or something?
I need to bring it up. Hang on. I think it might be Get Your Shit or Russian Hatwear.
Yeah.
One of those because they kind of mirror each other, right? Like they kind of have like similar sort of hooks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it might be Russian Hatwear. I think it's a good album. It's not as I don't know. It's what kind of reminded me of a little bit was this might seem like a weird comparison, but Joey Badass is 1999, and then it felt like it was something out of time, and it's not as overtly tribute-y as that, but it also feels like it came out 10 years late, but it feels. That seems like a backhanded compliment, considering a lot of the things I've said about Joey Badass. But I think does this comparison like style? They're not aesthetically similar. Like in what they're doing, really, like in what they're calling back to is not similar at all, really. And the styles of rapping on it aren't similar, but just that feeling of an album out of time.
Yeah.
And kind of the posse cut feeling on it kind of reminds me of the last song on 1999, Suspect, which is probably one of the best Joey Badass songs.
Yeah, for sure.
Even though that's throwing back to like native tongue sort of era stuff, which is not the sort of East Coast stuff this is calling back to at all.
Right. Also, one thing I want to just mention about the album, which I find hilarious, is that P Money, who's like a prolific New Zealand producer, he's on the album. He does the cuts on Golden Grail, and he has like a spoken interlude, and it's just really jarring.
He does that little like shout out thing. He does that shout out thing, and then his cuts are pretty impressive on that, actually.
Oh, he was a champion at one point, I think. So,
shout out to P Money.
Yeah, but it's just really funny hearing this really like thick New Zealand accent on this like incredibly New York album, you know.
I think Shakedown's a pretty tough track too. That was probably my favorite track on the second half because I think the second half isn't quite as good as the first half, but like because I think it's really strong up through Golden Grail. And then it's a bit of a lull, but then Shakedown and the last two after that are pretty strong. And
also, the last track, it cuts off early, like it has like a bit of trade off, and then like the song kind of fades out. There's a longer version of that. There's like a mixtape called World Domination, because I think there was some issue where the album got leaked early or something, so they had to like adjust the track list. But if you look up World Domination, there's like more UN stuff. A lot of the tracks that are on that album, and then like some other extended versions and stuff. So might be something worth looking into.
I'll check for that because I like this shit. I'll definitely. There was a single with Pete Rock too, I believe, that I don't recall.
Yeah,
that wasn't on here. That wasn't on here. I think it was like a promo single. I thought. I'm not seeing it on.
I think it's Long Time Coming. I think that's the name of the Pete Rock single, maybe. Which I think is on the deluxe like reissue of You In or You Out.
And I guess the UN did a single with Cameron and Vado in 2010. I do not remember that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either. I think it might have even been like a.
And that would have been an era. That would have been the era in which Cameron and Vado were putting out the Boss of All Bosses mixtapes, which I thought I heard all of. And this sounds like the song title actually sounds like something I've heard. So I wonder if this was just like a. But I do not remember. Roc Marciano ever being on a Cameron album, or mixtape. So I did not listen to that. I will actually check for that because that would be an interesting. Two of the most arrogant people to ever rap on the together.
Yeah, that would be the most quotable song of all time.
Unless they did a sex track together.
Oh yeah, no thanks. And then, so did you, Optimal, did you hear You In or You Out, or did you skip this one? Or?
No, I did not. I think it was one of the few that I did not hear. It was given to me in the homework in Patrick's defense, but I did not get the chance to hear it prior to the episode.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything for 10 minutes. I kind of figured you didn't hear it.
I mean, I was letting you guys talk. Like, that's what I do.
Also, just a quick shout out to, I think, Mike Raw passed away like last year, so just RIP to Mike Raw, who also later on I think had some co-production credits on Pimpfire Strikes Back. So
yeah, this is a good album. I would check for it. Like if you're into this general just style of like hard-nosed group posse rap, like it's got a little bit like MOP side, MOP, but more lyrical than that.
Yep.
Or like generally, I'm just a sucker for a good posse album because I think that's an easy way to, as long as you have a good producer and one good rap, like at least one good producer and one solid rapper to anchor everything. A posse album is like a pretty easy template to make a really satisfying listen for me. And there are no bad rappers on this one. Like Roc's a great rapper. Dino Brave's a good rapper. The other two are more than sufficient. The production's really good. It kind of just hits a very specific niche. I don't know if I could really want to listen to more than one album from these guys like this, but they did this one very well.
Yep. So I guess that probably leads us into
Strength and Honor.
Yeah, so I had actually never heard this whole thing until today. I had heard Allies Stand Up a lot. I love that song, but I'd never played this the whole way through for some reason.
I didn't get through the whole thing because I was kind of cramming some stuff in at the end, and I forgot about this one specifically. But it's cool. Like, you don't really hear Roc do too many mixtapes. Like, there's the J-Love one, which I didn't listen to. There's Pimpfire, which we'll you have that. That's his modern style. This is him in the old style and older style. Like, he does, like, typical mixtape shit. Like, he goes over the Dead Presidents 2 beat. Like, but he's doing it again with a lot more. It's interesting that I feel like in the same sort of mid-2000s mixtape, like, New York underground scene, he and Tommy were doing the same shit. Like, these two have become, like, so much more prominent, doing weirder, more idiosyncratic stuff. We're just kind of, they were there at this point, and I don't know how aware people were of them.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like, they were probably, it was like a very exclusive thing in terms of who actually knew who he was or who the UN was at the time. Another thing about this, there's one track on there I think Knots produced, and it's just like the most 2000s mixtape beat. Like, those real kind of synthy kind of sound. That one really like stood out to me as sounding from that mixtape era. I can't remember what it was though. It was like maybe the third or fourth track.
Yeah, this one I got like halfway through, and it's a good listen. It's not as essential as, like, if you're gonna listen to one of the early Roc projects, I would listen to You In You're Out before this one. Yeah,
sure.
This one's still cool, like, but it's a little more faceless. It's just kind of Roc and sometimes Dino just doing, like, you could tell this was a lot more off the cuff, not as written, not as crafted. A lot of jacked beats on here, or some jacked beats on here, I should say. And it's still worth hearing if you're a completist, but it's not essential.
And there's also, you hear a bit of Roc doing like double time flows as well on a couple of the tracks, which is, he's quite good at actually, I think. So,
I mean, he'll still speed up, like, even today, like, he'll fit it in. Yeah. But, like, the thing is, he doesn't do it in, like, a sort of, like, Busta Rhymes, like the dude who signed him, like, where it's like a showy centerpiece of his verse. Like, he'll put it in there when it makes sense or when he wants to, like, add color to something. Like, he knows how to, like, deploy every, like, he's got a lot more in terms of, I'm trying to think of the right way to put this and not sound like a pretentious asshole, but I'm probably going to sound like a pretentious asshole, so fuck it. Like, a lot more in his toolbox as a rapper than I initially thought.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's easy to write him off as just being monotone, drug rapper, kind of sounds like Raekwon, like, doesn't really. But really, the more you listen to his stuff in sequence, you realize how much he varies himself up project to project, song to song, what he chooses to go over. And just very creative, very idiosyncratic, very nuanced, very fucking funny, too.
Oh, yeah, he's
like, I want to bring up, like, I don't want to lose, like, the sight of the fact that some of his punchlines, like, the one I kept thinking about on Kaos has been the one that's been living in my car. Kind of the reason that I pushed the episode is because I put, like, that ended up in my car as, like, a go-to listen while I was moving over the past month, so I spent a lot of time in my car, and it seemed like good cold weather music, and it is. He has some line about, you need to, like, be in a blimp to get, like, a view of my hairdo.
Yeah, a view of my hairdo.
Right after he compares himself to, like, a young Hasselhoff. Like, some of the and, like, the way he delivers these lines and, like, the coldest, like, murderer's monotone makes it even better to me.
Yeah, me and my friends, we came up with, like, a Roc Marci drinking game where it's, like, the rules are, like, you drink when he compares himself to someone he doesn't look like, talks about, like, splitting, like, your head like it's a fruit, like, split your pear or, like, your melon.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain things that he kind of always goes back to that I just always like it for some reason, like, It's just,
sometimes makes jarring, inappropriate references to his Islamic faith right after he says something completely sacrilegious or does something particularly gross.
Yeah.
He's also a fan of talking about things that are the color of things, kind of like Jadakiss talks about the color of cars.
Yeah, that's another one for sure. Yeah.
That would all be in the future because he's still on this tape. He's still he's developing his personality, but I can't really point out to any punchlines nearly that distinctive around this time period.
No, the only line that sticks out to me is when he says Seinfeld money on the line when I sign deals. I always think about that line. But
that's a good line. That is a very good line. But then, so I guess his first big real breakout in terms of people, I was talking about people noticing him. Definitely somebody noticed. Dreddy Kruger from Wu-Tang family noticed him because he put him on the Think Differently compilation in 2005 or 6. I'm going to look up and say 7 and make me look really stupid. But in the mid-2000s, the Wu-Tang versus the Indies compilation, which was something that meant a lot of your following indie rap at the time. I remember everybody complained about it because it didn't have their favorite. There wasn't enough Wu-Tang on there, or didn't have their favorite indie rappers on there. But I think overall, this project is like a good compromise project in terms of trying to break certain types of rappers to like an audience that's going to pick up anything that has Wu-Tang on it. Back when that name was still carrying a little more weight. Like it didn't have 90s cachet with it, but Fish Scale had just come out. Ghostface was carrying the name out. Like it had a minor renaissance at the time. So it was a good way to platform a lot of MCs, and Roc steals the fucking show on his verse for sure. Makes the most of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I suppose as well, kind of going off of that, he has a beat and an appearance on Pro Tools, Jizz's album.
Yeah, and I don't remember that at all, which is weird. Probably because I've scrubbed, even though I paid for it with my own money. I mentioned this on the show before. When I couldn't make rent in summer of 2008, I bought both DigiSnaps and Pro Tools somehow. And I still feel like they owe me a combined like $30 to fucking.
We call that the struggle summer.
That was a struggle summer because I had to eat. I could barely eat Raisin Bran all week because I still spent fucking $30 on 2 subpar Wu-Tang CDs from washed up RZA and Jizza. And like Pro Tools again. I don't really remember the Roc verse on that, but also when I first heard the Ka verse, I thought he sounded like DMX. So my initial fucking impression, I don't know where.
How did you get that?
I don't know.
To be fair, he's like Ka's verse on that is a lot more guttural and like shouty. It's like his in between, like his old stuff where he is quite shouty, and then to him kind of progressing into Grief Pedigree.
This is not, this is definitely his older style, which there isn't very much record of out there. To be fair, like if you're thinking of like Honor Killed the Samurai, Descendants of Cain, Ka sounding like DMX, this Ka doesn't sound like that, but he still doesn't really sound like DMX. It was not a great comparison, but that, I mean, again, that's more Wu-Tang association for Roc. I don't really remember the verse that much, so you'll have to speak to that because I didn't.
Yeah, I don't remember it well either.
Fucking Pro Tools.
But I think I read that he had limited time to write it. Like maybe he wrote it in the taxi to the studio, or something like that. So it's like a pretty brief verse. I think he did the beat for it, and then he produced the Firehouse song, which is the Ka song. So that is actually the first proper, I suppose, Ka Roc Marci collab. And I reckon that song's a fucking banger. But
that song's way better than I gave it credit for. Ignore my RYM review. And it's called Firehouse. It's like Ka right away, like on his big platform, is immediately making reference to, makes that New York Post article look even that much more stupid. I think I've referenced this before. Is that his first big breakout song? He is referencing his quote unquote double life as a fireman. They weren't doxing anybody, so.
Yeah.
But so those were his big breakout moments. And then, again, did he do anything of note, really, between the Pro Tools and like the Wu-Tang stuff, and then
Well, I think Snow from Marcberg actually came out in 2008 or 2009. Like it was on blogs.
Well, the version that I always saw floating around, which is superior to the album version, is a remix with Sean Price.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So that would have been
after the original, and the album is the remix, which could be possible.
Yeah, so the original's the solo track, which would have been on Blogs, and then the deluxe version of Marcberg has the Sean Price feature on it, and a few other extra tracks.
So yeah, basically Marcberg, when it came out, was hailed as this throwback to, because you have to think about like what was like 2010, still pretty maximalist, like glossy rap, and as usual, everybody's saying New York is dead. As long as I can remember, everybody's always saying New York rap is dead, which is probably accurate because for the most part, New York rap doesn't do anything exciting anymore. But this was getting a lot of blog buzz. Like I said, it got mentioned, I'm pretty sure, in the top, very high on the Passion of the Weiss list. It was getting hype on Smoking Section, which is all I really needed to hear. And I listened to it, and it didn't grab me. I let it sit for a while, and then it came out with a version with the instrumentals. And the instrumentals are great. Like, they are the best. It's pretty much the best DJ Premier album that Premier never did. And when you think of DJ Premier, like producer, like DJ Premier worship and producers, you think of stuff like Static Selecta or like there's a very obvious like Premier template that people do. And Roc's not really doing that, but he nails the mood so well. He knows how Premier's drums sound and how to like loop, how Premier's loops sound. That's what's most important. And it sounds cold, like in terms of like winter cold.
That's a quintessential winter album for sure. To me, the production sounds like a mix of the infamous and Only Built for Cuban Links.
I mean, I hear the infamous in it a lot. I don't hear as much RZA stuff as you do, but I hear a lot of Premier circa Group Home and The Sun Rises in the East, Jeru. Like those are the touchstones I hear in the production.
I think I agree with you on
this. I thought that my opinion of it's improved a little bit, but it's still one of my least favorite of his. That said, Panic and Thug's Prayer, two of his best songs, smack in the middle with Snow there as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking homophobic, distractingly so.
Yeah. It's just an unfortunate aspect of this music for sure.
I can get around it with most of his albums, but not this one.
Right. Just quickly on Panic.
What do you say?
I was just going to say, on Panic, I'm convinced that inspired the Numbers on the Boards beat.
Oh, yeah, I wanted to bring that up. That up.
Yeah.
Well,
where do you guys stand on that?
Yeah, Numbers on the Boards, like, well, first of all, it's debated whether or not that was Kanye's beat or Don Cannon's beat anyway. But whoever made that beat pretty much just stole the shit out of the Panic beat.
You reckon it's a coincidence? You reckon it was intentional?
I don't know. Kanye's had more than a few beats where he's taken some shortcuts.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of other examples of that, but mostly it's just not crediting a collaborator or a sample, which I'm not going to shit on producers for not crediting their samples because every producer tries to get away with that. But I'm trying to think of a direct where it's like he heard a beat and plagiarized it because this sounds close to plagiarism.
Right.
Like really, and Kanye gets away with that in some ways where it's like he throws in the Jay-Z scratch. That's him doing something different. That's kind of something he does in collaborations where it's like he gets to call it a collaboration because he put the opera bit in Ham.
Right.
He puts that at the end, and now it's a Kanye beat too. So it's like he takes the Panic beat and chops up a Jay-Z verse a little bit in the scratch, and now it's a Kanye beat.
I mean, it sounds a little different. It sounds I mean, I'm not excusing. I don't know. I don't think when I heard it, I didn't think like, oh, the Numbers on the Board straight ripped it. Like, obviously, I hear the similarity. Yeah, no, it's the same. It's the loop. Like, I get that.
That's the noise as well, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. It just, to me, but I don't know. I think the songs have such a different energy to me. But then again, I haven't really thought about it, the songs side by side. So that's fair. I mean, I didn't hear like, what was the Kanye beat that he stole? What, the Adam and Eve, whatever, on the Nas album? Yeah, that's definitely a method. That was a little more obvious to me when I heard the original.
On a similar note as well, the beat is it White Label on the Nas Kanye album?
It's a great beat.
That to me sounds like a rock beat. But I don't know.
That's that and Cop Shot the Kid are the only two songs that I would say I really, really like from that Nas album.
Oh God, that just reminded me of. I said I wasn't going to talk about the Eminem album at all ever again.
Oh, let's go.
But you just triggered me because Cop Shot the Kid has the line about calf kneeling, which is a great line when it's delivered. And the Eminem album has a line about calf kneeling, which is in reference to somebody giving him a blowjob.
Yes. Did you? Okay. So on Twitter, I saw a screen cap of the orange and banana line or whatever the fuck.
An orange or
No.
I know what you're talking about. I can make orange rhyme with banana.
Yeah, I can make orange rhyme. Oh, I can make orange rhyme with banana. No, bitch, I can make an orange rhyme with banana. Or I can't even fucking do the dumbass part because it's so funny. Oh my god.
No, it's a parade of dad jokes.
He literally said, this man said Oranana with two N's.
It is like one thing that I got I had so much of an appreciation more for Roc Marciano as a rapper after listening to that Eminem album, because Eminem is like as the greatest rapper at this point. It's like a parody of fucking rap music.
Right. Yeah.
It's honestly unreal.
Yeah, I'm trying to call. The thing is, I think my brain did do a good job blocking out because I listened to it in the car on the way back from the grocery store today. I don't know why I trapped myself in the car. You think I would have learned after what happened with the Clown albums, how mad I got when I was trapped in the car with those. But this was just as bad as the Clown albums, ironically enough, because they were dissing Eminem on those albums. And like, there were at least 10 separate points where I just yelled, "Shut the fuck up, fuck off." I can't believe I was so angry. I was like legitimately angry at some of the fucking dad jokes he was making. And at one point he's like, "I'm just trolling." And it was after he said something about some sort of rectal thermometer joke. It's like, I'm just trolling. My argument about trolling is that it says more about the person who spends that much effort trolling like that than it does the person who gets trolled by it. Mm-hmm. And this is just, there's so much.
Was there? Okay, I saw another screen cap on Twitter, and I don't know if this is a real line because, as I said in the chat, I did not listen to this album and just gave it 1 star based on principle. However, is there a real line? Quote: "You ever heard of Chris Christopherson?"
Yes,
yeah. Well,
yes,
I am.
Yes.
I am pissed off.
Yes, it is a lie. I wish it wasn't. That was one of the times I yelled, "Oh God damn it!" in the car.
Has Christopherson a Melvin song?
No,
I don't think Eminem is listening to.
And then he said, "Yeah, Chris Christopherson is a country singer." And so he's like, "You've heard of Chris Christopherson? Well, I'm pissed offerson."
Oh, just hang it up, Ian. Hang it up, please. Do us a favor.
And then he has like one song about how much he loves hip hop. Like he has a song about how hip hop's a woman that he can't leave alone. He's in an abusive relationship with them. So it combines two of the worst, tiredest fucking song tropes ever, which is an Eminem relationship song and hip hop personified as a woman song. Yeah, it's fucking brutal in every regard.
Also, the song is called Tone Deaf, which.
It has one, like, I guess that's meta because it has one of the worst beats ever, but it's like taunting you on the beat, like, I can't hear you because I'm tone deaf. It's so childish. And like, he even raps about how I'm like 48 years old, and then it's like the 5-0's coming up on me, and then it's like some corny joke about the cops coming up on him. There are some socially conscious lines on there too, which are, great when they're next to like pee and doo-doo jokes that Cool Keith would say are too juvenile.
Also, so the line that you were talking about was Eminem said he would fuck your mom with a rectal thermometer or something like that, or in the ass with a thermometer or something like that.
We're the people he's talking about though. At a good third of the album, where he's just fucking crying about the internet. Like much of the album is devoted to just bitching about people who don't like his music on the internet.
God, I don't even know what you even like. What is the point?
Why did this happen? Like, the original album was like bad enough, but it had some scheming stuff to it. This is just like dog shit. It's really, I don't know who it's for. It's embarrassing. Like, I actually was listening to it in my basement when I was like moving groceries, and I had to like turn it off because I was like afraid people were going to hear it and associate it with music. I just moved to this neighborhood. I can't have people thinking that I listen to this shit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I would rather hear Roc Marciano talking about how the harlot's pussy farted than.
Because at least they're like, damn, that beat's hard as fuck.
I might not agree with what he says about harlot's pussies, but that instrumental goes.
That's so good. Hey, his voice sounds dope, though.
Oh, that's another thing about Eminem's voice is so horrible.
It's so
no more Eminem talk. No more Eminem talk. I was just triggered by the fucking line about Cat, like the thing about.
Well, it's okay because I was gonna bring him up earlier when you said about Busta, and I was gonna say, did Busta or Eminem create the thing where like you're waiting for their verse and it's like, oh shit, it's the M verse, or like it's the Busta, but like, and then they just
I think it was Busta actually. I'm pretty sure that Busta was the.
They go on like
king.
Entirely too long,
And I've never been that impressed with Busta Rhymes, to be honest.
Have you listened to The Coming?
Probably the no, that's the Beatable album, The Coming.
It's like the 96 album.
Yeah, no, I listened to it way back when I was trying to listen to all the essential stuff, and I never really, and it didn't move me that much. And I found him mostly annoying on the Tribe stuff I heard him on. So, and I always thought "Woo Ha, I Got You All in Check" was annoying when I was a kid, and it was on MTV all the time. Yo, it gets stuck in my head, which I'm sure that's sacrilege. Because I appreciate the song more now, and I appreciate what Busta's done. But as a rapper, it's just like I never thought he was like an all-time great. I thought he was kind of a novelty. Hot take, I know.
I was actually going to interrupt your Eminem thing before regarding personifications in rap music because Marcberg has Jungle Fever, which extends the white girl cocaine double entendre for an entire song.
Cam would actually later do that on White Girl, but he wouldn't be a. Like, that's the thing about Marciano is that he's like street level hard, but he's also very calculated in his writing.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I like about Marcberg is it's kind of like the Come Up album, you know, like it's him doing shit to get to where he would, you know, eventually be from Reloaded. It's the kind of album I think I read where at the time it was like for him a lifetime of digging for samples to make that album, like, you know, that kind of thing. So I quite like that there's that story behind it in that sense.
I mean, I feel like for his career arc, and also the rap persona that he's come up with, it is a good origin story album, like a debut album. But I feel like it's almost crafted in a way where it's supposed to be like his Illmatic, and it never hit me like that. But again, I think that the 2 or 3 classic tracks on here are worth it. And the only thing that really turns me off about it at this point is that there's like whole skits devoted to homophobic shit, and that he just like seems to lean on that one insult a lot. It's distracting, but I can get past that musically. It's also, it's just not.
I feel like Thug's Prayer is effectively the song that really set the template for his kind of like atmospheric kind of drifting beats, you know, like where there's.
Well, what do you think? There's anything on here that really predicts the drumless sort of sound he would have later on that he'd get criticized for?
And also, It's a Crime a little bit, where it's just like the vocal sample the whole way through. And that's actually, that song there is one of the reasons why it reminds me of RZA, because this is like a very specific thing. But if you listen at the very end of the song, you hear him fuck up the loop, like it goes out of time or something, and that's just very like 95 RZA production type stuff. So yeah, just that kind of small detail there. But yeah, and you know, there's other stuff like, I suppose Pop's like a storytelling track, and what else is on there? Yeah, it's just kind of stuff it seems a little bit more like autobiographical instead of just like this kind of outlandish crime boss figure, which I suppose he becomes after this album.
Yeah, he definitely evolves the character, the persona into a character after this. Like, Reloaded is definitely the evolution of him into a mob boss. And then with the Rosebudd albums, it gets to straight up theatrical levels.
Yep.
Kaos is kind of intended as like another like side story movie. It has its own theme and everything. So.
And also something else, do you know which version you listen to of this album? Because there's one with Hide My Tears, that's like the original pressing, but that got removed for sample clearance on the deluxe. So do you recall hearing that?
I did not hear the one that had Hide My Tears on when I re-listened to it, because I was listening to it on Spotify. I don't believe that has it on Spotify.
Oh, yeah.
But I did have the original that's easily available on SoulSeek. And that's the one I heard initially as well.
Because Hide My Tears is one of, in my opinion, one of the best closing tracks to a rock album.
Yeah, his closing tracks don't always hit for me. I don't really like the one that closes on. But then again, you also have something like what closes. Is it Marcielago that he ends by going to PF Chang's and not paying?
That's
That's what? Which one is that?
The Hold a Dark Horse.
The Hold a Dark Horse, yeah.
Right.
Or Pale Horse, I thought it was. Yeah, where, Consigliere. But,
also, what did you think of the Ka verse on Marcberg, on We Do It?
I thought it was very good. Again, like, the early stuff with Ka is more aggressive. I think Ka in general would keep dialing back his style and dialing it back over time. But they've already got that chemistry where it's like Roc's going to spit hard street shit and Ka's going to spit introspective stuff.
Right.
And I think that's just like an incredible dynamic. It's a shame that we're never going to get the fucking Iron Clergy out. Metal Clergy.
Yeah, man, what the hell? Hurry up. Need that shit.
That's up there with Swift and Changeable in Vaporware Heaven.
Yeah, did you see Ka did a tweet where he was like, he just listed all of their collabs, and he's like, I think you've already got the album, guys. Like,
I mean, I was actually thinking about putting together, I'm sure people have already done this, just putting them together in a playlist of all their collaborations. And I wouldn't be surprised if it did like actually thread together as an album, because that's the sort of stuff they would do, Ka especially, because Ka is very, like, every time I listen to his music, there's something new that I notice in it, and the way he writes it and the way he sequences it. Almost why we haven't done a Ka episode yet is because I'm too intimidated by his material. I don't think I could do it justice.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of lose words talking about Ka's music. I talked about this in our mid-year episode all those months ago. But like how I love Descendants of Cain so much, but it's just kind of like I would be reduced to, very hollow, like, praise buzzwords and just talking about it. Because
one thing I'm sorry to cut you off, but stuff that he puts so much work into his music that I didn't notice. He has the one track, You Know What It's About, which is based on a Black Sabbath sample. I didn't know it was a Sabbath sample. And then if you listen to all of his lines, they have all these religious references in them about the Sabbath and the street, like, his parish. And I didn't even notice that. That's like so fucking brilliant. I mean, I already loved the song. I thought the wordplay on it was great already, but then knowing that it's all based upon what he was sampling makes it 10 times better.
That's crazy. I didn't know that either. But I haven't really listened to much. That's on the Night's Gambit, hey? I haven't listened to the Night's Gambit as much as his other albums for some reason. So
yeah, Night's Gambit is definitely Night's Gambit and Yen Lo are my favorite Ka albums. And that's no disrespect to Honor Killed the Samurai or Descendants of Cain, which I think are both excellent, but I haven't given them as much listening time.
It's funny, those are my two favorites. Descendants of Cain, Honor Killed the Samurai.
My favorite is probably Orpheus versus the Sirens.
And that's probably my third. It's top. Those are my top three.
That would be my third favorite, although Grief Pedigree was one that I really got me into him. I think Grief, I've listened to that around the same time as Night's Gambit, and so I want to give that proper credit. But Orpheus versus the Sirens, the way he writes around whole album concepts, nobody else does that. And I don't think anybody else could do some of the shit he does conceptually and not have it be incredibly forced or corny or just tedious to listen to.
Just to something as well that's I think is worth bringing up is that so people complain about Ka and Roc. One of the main complaints is lack of drums, but it's the same deal with both Marcberg and Grief Pedigree, where both of those albums have a lot of drums on them. So like, if you are coming from that mindset, I would recommend listening to those albums first and then kind of easing into the kind of drumless sound, because on both of these albums, pretty prevalent on the majority of the tracks.
Yeah, I don't think Roc really gets into the weirder drumless shit. Like, there's weirder moments on Reloaded, but I don't think it's until Rosebudd that you really start seeing him. I mean, I didn't really listen to Marci Beaucoup for this one, so maybe there was weirder shit on there too, but I don't really recall that. But I would say that Rosebudd is probably where it starts getting super weird, like where he starts having the really left field type of beats, I would say.
Yeah. Yes, like very psychedelic, that kind of era of rock music, the kind of 2017, 2018 range.
I mean, well, anything else to say about Marcberg, or do we want to move on to Reload? Well, was this around? Well, Poltergeist was in between, and was
and also Greneberg
on this, by the way, Greneberg with Gangrene.
Yeah. So do we want to discuss Greneberg first, or?
Yeah, we should do Greneberg because we talked about the psychedelic aspect, and that's probably the most overtly psychedelic thing he's ever been on, because that's their whole aesthetic and their whole approach, and he fits it incredibly well. Like, I mean, him and Alchemist always work super well together. So, it's hard. Like, it doesn't really feel like it's a collaboration in the best sort of way, where it doesn't feel like either side is making concessions to the other, but they're all equally influencing each other's music, all three of them. Because I hear elements of all three in the production. And rap-wise, I think, no one's ever going to say, oh no, or Alchemist is their favorite MC, I don't think. But I think they both step it up when they have rock around, I would say. Yep. Although I think the MCing on Gangrene is generally pretty underrated.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. One of my
I think you come here though for the beats first and foremost, like, and what Roc can do over the beats, because I mean, I had just recently heard this, like very recently. This is like the homework I did, and it's like Alchemist is one of my favorite producers in this lane, and I think Roc's just voice is tailor made for a lot of these beats.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good project. They kind of just do what they do, but a lot of times you don't really need much more than that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're not. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm a big fan of Jaws on this album. The last track where it flip. Does it flip the Jaws theme, or is it something similar to the Jaws theme?
I don't know. Let's see if it's on Who Sampled. But I really like Mama Told Me, the initial one, the way Roc comes into that with like, I'm rolling. Yeah, and like his melodic flow on that is like really cool. Really, it's like one of his more relaxed sort of flows, I guess. And it's just like he's just bragging on it, but he makes everything sound really fucking cool. Mm-hmm. And it's like deliberate. Like, you're not getting, like, his approach on this is not nearly as hard rapping as it was on Marcberg.
Yeah, for sure.
But it fits the instrumentals. Like, it kind of predicts a little bit of the sort of stuff he would rap over in the more psychedelic era with, like, Behold a Dark Horse, Rosebudd, and also, I guess, the Muggs collab, too, because some of this stuff, like, I feel like a lot of what Alchemist and Ono did with Gangrene is influenced by like Muggs' psychedelic rock production style.
Yeah, for sure. And I also love the line, "This ain't Kid Cudi, this is G shit Gully." That just cracks.
Yeah, there's just a way he spits out his punchlines on this that just sound like really just like mean but also like very competent. So I guess the only Who Sampled we get is no, we don't get anything for Jaws. They only have something for one track on here, unfortunately.
It sounds like the Jaws thing, but yes, I don't know.
If you could actually get that cleared. So maybe
that's what I was thinking as well. Anything else about this album we want to discuss, or
not really? I mean, I'm struggling. I've listened to it a ton, but I'm struggling to think of any like great quotables from it, although they're there.
Yeah.
I don't know. The problem is I've listened to so much rock lately that the quotables sometimes blend together. So I really have because that is one thing about his music is some of it does sound the same. Like if you listen to a lot of it in a clump, although there is a definite, like I would never say, like I feel like he does sometimes get the criticism that he makes the same album over and over. And I would strongly, strongly disagree with that.
Yeah. Same.
For example, Reloaded, which I think is the perfect like follow-up to your big breakout debut album in that it refines everything great about the original to a science.
Yeah.
Was this also the start of the Knowledge the Pirate collabs?
Yeah, I don't think they collabed
so.
before. Yeah, I don't think they collabed before this one.
He shouts them out on that Strength and Honor mixtape, I noticed. So they obviously knew each other back then, but yeah, that's their first, I guess, song together.
I mean, his verse is good, but it's definitely not like, Ka's verses are obviously way more standout, particularly on 9 Spray. Although Not Told is great, but I don't think the album really gets going. Like, Flash Gordon's amazing. It's one of my favorite Alchemist beats. That's one of their best collaborations. But I don't think it really truly gets going till Thug's Prayer Part 2, which has somehow 3 beat switches.
Yeah. If you listen to the actual song that samples, it's the case of just Roc, which he does quite often. He just takes a big chunk from the song, doesn't like treat it or anything, and just raps over it. So it's like a bridge on that particular song, which is him revisiting the same sample, obviously from the first Thug's Prayer.
Well, that was just amazing loop pulling then in that case, because it just fits perfectly, and it's like an incredible performance in his case that he's able to flow over it so well, like so effortlessly. And that goes into 76, which is probably my favorite Roc song. I think it's like the ideal Roc Marciano song, especially if you watch it with the Nick Goldwatch video that came out with it. Just so fucking perfect. Just cold weather music in every way. Like the way he delivered, like he goes for nearly 5 minutes straight, no hook. And like it has the beat sounds like cold winter air.
Yeah. I was a couple years ago, I used to work at a supermarket, and the song that samples like played on the supermarket radio. My head exploded. I was like, "Oh my god, he sampled this! Like this is bananas."
What was it?
It's a 10cc song called "I'm Not in Love."
10cc. Yeah, I think Madlib has sampled them a lot before.
Yeah,
too,
it's been sampled by a few people, but I think that Roc does it the best. I don't know. He does like the best like job at making it really atmospheric.
It almost feels a little bit like it's not as minimal, but it kind of feels like a boom bap or 90s hip hop, like New York hip hop style version of like Bird on a Wire, kind of.
Right.
And then the way it just establishes this atmosphere to it. For like, I'm trying to find the right adjectives for it, but it's so atmospheric, and the way he comes into it, where it's like he's authoritative without ever raising his voice or changing his cadence. And then he has so many like lines that are just like the way he delivers them is like the dry delivery is what gives them their impact. Like with a meatball get squeezed on. Threat, but he makes it work so well.
Yeah, this is when he starts to get quite outlandish with his like phrasing of things, Where,
and after he says you a meatball gets squeezed on, he keeps the food theme going when he says he's going to turn your whole physical to cream corn.
Yeah. One of my favorite lines on this album is on Deeper when he says, "I copped the coat in Mongolia and spoke harmonious at the podium." What does that even mean? And of course, spit the chorus to stimulate the whore's clitoris to taste like porridge. Just like phrasings, like. I think he my favorite track on this. Oh, sorry.
There's there will be one song we get to where he doesn't get to skate anymore, but I let Roc get away with a lot of gross sex lines just through the virtue of his charisma and dry humor.
Right.
I mean, I think we all know what song I'm talking about. I won't spoil it, but I think we all know what song.
We'll get there.
Sure. Thread count on this album is one of the smoothest songs ever made by anybody. Q-Tip, absolutely
great song.
Magnificent fucking instrumental.
I'm a big fan of Death Parade. I think Death Parade's my favorite track. Death Parade and Emeralds are my kind of two go-tos on this album.
Yeah, I think Emeralds is like where the album should end, honestly, because I feel like The Man is a little rambling and it's the weakest beat on the album. I mean, I get why it's like it ends like just kind of like on this triumphant note, but it doesn't feel like. I mean, I guess Emeralds would feel a little anticlimactic as an album closer, but it's such a great dark beat and such great verses to it. I don't know. Like, it feels like the run from 76 all the way through Emeralds, or Thug's Prayer, really, all the way through Emeralds. It's like a sprint of his best possible music. And then The Man just feels kind of like it's supposed to be this, like, dramatic closing credits, and it doesn't really work for me. It's a little bit of a letdown.
Yeah, I do like the Rick James line on The Man, though, and just
I
the way
have good punchlines on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's like, because he would do longer songs later on Rosebud that would work better for me. And he would do like the sort of triumphant closer thing better that would work for me. But here it's not a bad song, but I don't think it earns kind of the gravity that it's trying to have.
I think overall it's pretty common to see people call this Roc's masterpiece. And he listed it on, I think Noisy has that thing where like artists rank their records. He said this is his favorite one. This is in like 2018, so maybe he's changed his mind since, but it's definitely the most, like, I think, sonically cohesive kind of cinematic sound. It's like the mood album, I feel, in Roc's discography.
Yeah, I can definitely get with that. I think it's got some of his, like Patrick said, the quintessential rock songs. Like Flash Gordon. I was going to say Nine Spray with Ka. And I would probably say 76 too, and the Q-Tip track Thread Count. Yeah, those are my favorites. I listened to 76 and Flash Gordon a lot, like in the time when I was like really getting into rock, because I hadn't really heard much. Those songs were like familiar with me in terms of how they like sound. It's tough to explain. Like rock's appeal is like familiar if you were into kind of grimy or, quote unquote dusty or New York sound. But I heard rock before I heard Ka. And I heard like their rock's brand and what became like the whole like drumless brand of, new age, like underground New York rap. Like rock was the first I heard. So it was familiar, but it was like wholly different and like really addicting stuff to listen to. I think Reloaded was like the start of me being like really into it, because this was the first rock I heard.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, so this was like definitely a really, really good album. Still one of his best. I don't think I have necessarily a favorite, to be honest, but this is definitely one of his best.
On some days, this is my favorite. I have another big contender for favorite that I'll get to. One track we didn't get to talk about that I really noticed on my re-listen that I love was Peru, which has one of the stranger beats on here and has one of the few like actual like introspective details. First, he has a line on here where it's like, your little wave's just a splash in the pool, kid. Never mind the lesser kind. Do not cast pearls before swine. Take it as a sign. That's straight up Ka right there. That's like street level knowledge type shit. But then he goes into, you may have heard it through the grapevine. It rained on the day that Marvin Gaye died. While we was in my father's gray sob, we sobbed. The feeling was odd. Like that's like a little like he's so sparing with the autobiographical details that when he drops them in like that, they have that much more potency.
Yeah.
And like he's so good with the little details in those, like my father's gray sob, and the way he raps, he's able to rap like thread sob into sob perfectly. Feeling was odd. Like that's like to go back to the bullshit Eminem album or whatever. Eminem does this like fucking assonant, like multi rhyming shit, syllabic rhyming shit, and it's so meaningless. It's like he just beats you over the head with it and does it over and over. But then you listen to somebody like Roc who's able to do it with such artfulness, like, and such precision. Because first of all, what makes the Eminem shit so unappealing and sloppy is that we were talking about how like he got that Busta Rhymes privilege to just, 16 ain't enough. You can just go for fucking ever. And that just makes it so nobody remembers. Like, you go for 4 minutes, you know, no one's going to remember anything you said because you're just babbling the whole time. Like, Roc just very strictly structures the way he, like, writes his verses, and very specifically picks weird, like, he's able to rhyme the same way over such completely different things. Like, when we get to the really weird shit, he'll rap over, like, the Trent Truce track on the most recent album.
Yeah.
Or even, like, he's using a cadence he's used a million times before over a beat that no one else would ever think to rap over, period.
Yeah.
So it's just like the technical ability that he has but it's not boring because he's so funny. It's the outlandish shit he says, the fucking character he creates when he raps.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a
I think to your point about the, like, I think, I forget which one of you mentioned it, but the humor that Roc has, and even the way he, like, offhandedly says, like, lines. Like, there's his feature on the West Side Gun track this year, $500 Ounces, when he's in his verse, he has so many different punchlines that he just are basically like throwaways to him, and he's on to the next thing. And those lines are, like, so funny. Like the part when he talks about the seats in the Benz, Lenny Kravitz skin.
Yeah.
So fun. Get your wig spun like a tumbleweed in Belize. I get on the beat and bleed. Something sacrifice to please deities. Like, the way he just strings lines together is so fucking cool and effortless, but also it's kind of hilarious. Like what he is saying. And like, it's a combination of, like, I'm either walking away from a Roc Marciano verse just doing the permanent, like, scrunched up face. Or I'm doing, like, or I'm kind of, like, laughing at something he said, and not in, like, a laughing at him, but just a laughing at, like, the wit and, like, how he can make something that isn't a joke or doesn't sound like a joke, like, makes it funny. But he's not delivering it in a way where he's, like, setting it up and hammering you with a punchline. He's just kind of talking.
Yeah, it's like he kind of knows when to pause and kind of use the kind of air around him to formulate those kind of lines, you know? Like, it's really impressive.
Yeah, one of my favorite, I've talked about it extensively on the show before, one of my favorite things in hip-hop is, like, conversational flow, and I talk about that all the time with, like, people like Gibbs and people like that, but Roc is, like, a different kind of conversational flow. Like, it's like he's just talking versus rapping, but it's not like Gibbs is, like, to use as an example, Gibbs on a song like $500 Ounces, like, it's kind of like, it's almost like you're on the phone with him and he's talking and he's giving you, like, a story, and, like, you know, with, like, filled with, like, little intimate details and such, like crying about Kobe dying, or, like, he watches the Lakers, something like that. Versus, like, Roc, he kind of, and I find this consistent on all his records, it's more like those moments of where he peels back the curtain are, to me anyway, few and far between, but when they hit, like, they really hit. And then just in general, his general, like, persona and character are super interesting and, like, very, I keep going back to, like, very just funny, and not in the way that, like, you're, like I said before, not in the way that you're laughing at him, but in the way that you're just you're laughing along with this, like, unique persona that he's created that's, like, some weird, like, 2010s version of, like, a Raekwon and, like, Jizza hybrid. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, I feel like the Wu-Tang comparison holds water in that one of the appeals of listening to a Roc verse is that you get to, compared to, like, old Wu-Tang verses, is that you can unpack the slang and you find more to enjoy. And once you hear what he's talking about, at first you just enjoy it because it sounds dope to you. You laugh at the punchlines you get. He's just, like, a cool character, but then, like, something compels you to look deeper into it because he's got some coded language in there, and then unpacking that gives you a lot more to enjoy about it. But he is definitely part of, like I can see why he and Bronson worked well together, because they're both kind of informed by, like, that same sort of, like, 80s, early 90s, like, low budget action movie, like, character. Like, although I think Roc stuff kind of goes, like, Bronson's very specifically in like that VHS action hero thing, like a little bit ironic. Whereas I think Roc kind of draws back even further. Like, obviously, it's like 70s blaxploitation films are a big reference point for him, especially with Pimpfire and stuff. But like, just some of the references he makes. Like, right now, I'm looking at 20 Guns, and which has one of my favorite lines in here, where he just talks about how Keith Sweat sang at the wedding.
Yeah.
Great little drop in there. And then he comes then later on, like, I'm like Clooney and ghetto jewelry. Like, whenever he talks about, like, makes like these increasingly like exaggerated comparisons of how handsome he is, or like what a movie star he is. Like, he and Bronson both like to call themselves hunks, which I think is just a very funny way to refer to yourself. I mean, it's funnier with Bronson because Bronson looks like Bronson, but
yeah. Something else is going to say on it, but it's escaped me.
Yeah, I mean, any more discussion about this really would just be me like listing favorite lines over and over. I think it's just like a front to back incredible rap performance. The production's the perfect backing for it. He has a way of having samples sound like loops that sound both clean and dusty, if that makes sense. Like, he picks like really really clean instrumentation and dirties it up. I guess that's the RZA influence there too. Like,
just another thing about this album as well. Did you? There's a deluxe edition for this album with more tracks.
I heard the deluxe tracks.
There's
Weird
a great
shit.
track, Paradise for Pimps. That beat is like so lush, so good.
That was Nick Rosebud, I think. Like, that feels like some of the longer tracks on the back half of Rosebud.
Yeah, for sure.
Just very layered instrumentation there. I thought I Shot the King as one of the weirder things. Like, definitely probably would be the weirdest thing on the proper album. The vocal sample on there.
So I Shot the King, the beat for that, it's sampled from the same album of Thug's Prayer.
That makes sense.
It's like a old psych rock band.
Damn, I really need to like dig into these, like what he's been sampling.
There's a really cool mix. I think it's on SoundCloud called Sounds Like Porridge, and it's leading up to it might be just before Rosebudd's Revenge, and it's like a mix of the samples and then the actual songs as well, and they kind of like play the sample into the song. It's really good listening if you want to kind of see
I love that sort of mix. One of my favorite mixes of all time is actually it's called A Journey into Fresh Diggin', Lord Quaz Meets Himself. And it's by DJ Trouble, who I don't know if he's done anything else. It's Troubl, no E. And it's worth seeking out. It's like Quasimodo songs and like Mad Lib songs in general, with like mixed back and forth with the original sample and the song that Mad Lib flipped it for. It's about an hour long. It's really great shit. I have it at 5 stars. Nice. And I strongly recommend it if you can find it. I have it on SoulSeek if anybody's looking for it. But it was like circulated. It was like a free, like Stones Throw actually put it up on their site back in the day. So I don't know how they still feel about that. But it's worth hanging out. So I really like that style of mix. So I'll definitely check that one out when we get off the call. But yeah, so I don't want to stick on one album too long because this is already going on for quite a while, and it still has a million more albums to get to.
Yeah.
So there were Marcberg instrumentals, which we already talked about when we talked about Marcberg. So I guess Pimpfire is next, or
just real quick. Obviously, Poltergeist. Just want to shout out that song, which around the same era. That's like an Arch Druids beat, and they're obviously frequent collaborators. Animos obviously ended up doing an album with Ka. That's a great song. It's a shame it didn't make it onto an album, but fantastic.
It would have fit in perfectly on Reloaded.
And just another quick thing I want to mention as well. There's another album that came out in 2013, I think, called Luv NY, and it's Ray West. It's the beat on this. It's kind of like a sunnier side to this kind of drumless kind of sound that Roc was coming up with. But I just more want to mention it because there's another song there where Roc rhymes with Cool Keith, which obviously they ended up doing later on. So, just wanted to point that out.
I have both their albums. I have not listened to the second one. I listened to the first one around the time that it dropped, and I remember enjoying it. I'm not the biggest fan of every MC in the group, but I think, again, like I talked about earlier, posse albums are a pretty easy sell for me.
Yeah.
Did Roc do all the production on that, or who did the production on Love?
No, it's that dude Ray West. He produced the whole thing.
Oh, Ray West.
Yeah.
West.
It's real short. It's like, I think, just over half an hour. But yeah, worth listening to for some more kind of rock stuff from this era.
If I recall, he was also part of another super group called Mars that only did one song, which was him, Saigon, Large Professor, and
Action Bronson.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
Is he most?
Cormega.
Cormega.
Oh, okay, yeah. Even more New York. Just
Yeah.
quintessentially New York.
And it was a solid song, and it felt like it was leading somewhere, but it never did. Like, they have one song announcing themselves as a group, and then they proceeded to do nothing as a group.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Luv NY album is on the higher end of the Kool Keith late career stuff. I know people tend to, kind of pick and choose what they like from Keith's later career stuff, because some of it is not great. Kool Keith episode will take even longer than the Gucci episode, I think. We're gonna let Sphinx have that one.
Yeah, it seems apropos.
You can tell he's not as good as Soul or some Anacon rapper who has advanced the art form of hip hop through the original drumless rappers. I guess they were also beatless and talentless, but
got him.
Yeah, I have to troll Sphinx once an episode to make sure he's paying attention.
as you should. Anacon slander always tolerated. I don't even despise Anacon.
I don't even remember. It just seems to get under his skin. So that's why I mentioned. I haven't even listened to the Anacon stuff in a long time. I do remember that I did not like Cloud Dead when I listened to it, but I have not listened to it in 15 years. So maybe I'll like it now.
I think Cloud Dead is the only thing that I did like from Anacon's, but it was also a long time ago.
They also named an album advanced music for the advancement of hip hop or something, which that is just the most insufferably fucking pretentious thing you could ever That's
it's tough,
skin-crawlingly pretentious.
It's a tough look. It's a really tough look.
What are your opinions on Anacon, Thoughtfoul?
I don't really know much of it. I've only really heard, that Cloud Dead album, which I do enjoy. Sometimes I prefer listening to it as an instrumental album. But yeah, I don't really know enough about them. I know about, obviously, when LP and Soul had their beef, which was kind of funny.
The diss tracks on that are pretty funny, actually. Yeah. Sphinx did hit me to that, the Linda Tripp diss track with the voicemail on it is quite funny.
Yeah.
So we can move on from Roc from Luv NY to Pimpfire Strikes Back, I believe, is the next one.
Yeah, Pimpfire Strikes Back and Marci Beaucoup, I think, came out a few months apart, maybe in 2013.
Not much to talk about, in my opinion, with Marci Beaucoup, but I don't know if you guys have different takes.
Yeah, I haven't listened to it that much, honestly.
We can just knock that out real quick because I didn't listen to it again for the episode, and it's his
weakest studio album.
I think the issue with Marci Beaucoup is that he had just came off Reloaded, and it was his quote unquote producer album where he's showcasing his production with other MCs on it, but a lot of the beats aren't very memorable, or at least from when I've listened to it. It has some great tracks on it though. It starts off really well. Love Means of Evidence is great, and it's kind of funny because Evidence does sound a bit like Roc Marci, so to have him open his album, I always felt quite humorous. And it also has one of my favourite lines where he's the Queen's twat was hairy like an Ewok. It's just, again, one of those really silly sexual lines that it's just, I don't know, really goofy but kind of hilarious.
My favorite track on here is easily Psych Ward with Gangrene, which... Yep. I'm assuming that, I guess, Roc produced this one because it sounds very much like an Alchemist beat, or at least a Gangrene beat, like Alk and Ono put it together themselves. What it really does sound like, though, is some of the wildest, RZA stuff, or maybe what Madlib did on Outside on O.J. Simpson. It sounds so wild, just 10 different things going on at once, shit flying around. It's by far the liveliest thing on here. It fit right in on Greneberg or the Saw Blade EP, which we didn't really talk about, I think. But that's just one track, essentially, with them together, which is the same stuff as Greneberg. But, yeah, that is my favorite thing on here. The Kaos stuff is very good, as always. Cut the Check is very good, except for a really annoying Quelle verse. Quelle can be hit or miss with me with his quirkiness, and that was a miss. I think Blue and Roc together is such a good combination that I was annoyed that Quelle did that with it.
Right.
So yeah, like it's not a bad release at all. Like occasionally you do, like I could have done without Matthew Ragazzino. I don't think he ever really adds much to anything. But yeah, you get like him with some of his best collaborators. You get Ka twice, you get Bronson. But it doesn't really, you get Gangrene. But with this concept, first of all, I was hoping for more memorable beats. I agree. Aside from Psych Ward, there's nothing really in terms of a memorable beat. And
Didn't know it was really interesting.
But the other thing you would really hope for is that, like, you know, dream collaborators, like aside from like the usual circle, like obviously you're gonna get the Ka stuff, Knowledge the Pirate, Bronson, and really it doesn't deliver. Like you just kind of get like Boldy, which no one really cared about Boldy then. It wasn't that big a deal. You get like AG the Coroner, which is like, okay, you got Action Bronson's Weed Carrier, that's cool. Bragazino sucks. SAS was interesting.
The British
expect them to shut the fuck up. Cameron's English Muffin Carriers from the Ipset days. But
the beat for Didn't Know with is it Freeway and Knowledge the Pirate, where it's like that twinkling noise and it's got that really bizarre drum pattern. That's quite an interesting, memorable beat to me.
That was a weird, considering that Freeway is probably the biggest name on here, that was an interesting thing to give to him.
For sure. And he did well with it, I think.
Freeway's a great rapper. I really like Freeway. But he's got a good voice for what, like, because a lot of what this whole, like, niche genre of rap relies on is having a good distinctive voice. Like, so many of these rappers that don't sound like, you know, they might have hard bars, like flame emoji bars or whatever, but they just have the same goddamn voice.
Yeah.
But Freeway has always been somebody with a super distinctive voice, and that made his bars stand out. His voice gave it character. And I think at first, if you're not used to Roc's voice, his voice could sound like a little colorless or monotone, but what he does with it, with the context of his lines and the production, it actually has tons of character. But yeah, this album is not his best work.
Yeah, the
tracks are worth keeping. The Gangrene track's worth grabbing.
The thing about this and Marci Beaucoup, and Pimpfire Strikes Back coming out a few months apart is you often read people say they should have combined the best tracks from the two of those into one album. But the whole idea of this album, obviously, is that it is him getting guests on every track. So between the two of them, you can probably make something really great if you were to kind of mix and match. Yeah,
I don't agree with that criticism. And the point of Pimpfire was to do like a free mixtape with a theme. So it doesn't make sense to combine that with unrelated stuff because he stays on theme in Pimpfire. And the theme is that he wants to take women and make them have sex to make money for him. So, like, in the way, like, it's interesting because, again, like, you know, the homophobia on Marcberg, like, this is definitely more the homophobia on Marcberg was harder for me to deal with because it felt a little more like not a character thing, more like just genuine, like, hate speech sort of thing. Like, he's just like, the way he kept coming back to it was like, okay, you're really preoccupied with this. Whereas, you know, like, there's a lot of pimp talk on this, but it also feels like it's kind of you're watching a movie. You can at least attribute this more to he's playing a character, even though it's like his coldest line about pimping is still to come. It's on Chaos. We'll get to it. But I'm pretty sure it's on Chaos. But there's stuff on here like Sacrifice, which is him over a Mad Lib beat for the only time, I believe. Only time he's been on a Mad Lib beat.
There is somewhere, maybe even from the UN days, when Mad Lib remixed like a rock a cappella and put it on one of his beats. But I can't remember what it's called. But yeah, that's like, this is probably the only like organic collab, you know?
It's fantastic.
It's super good. It's so smooth.
Like 4.5, but yeah, like the chorus, if you want to call it that, is like him talking about she want to sacrifice her body, she want to buy me that Bugatti, and like that's how it leads off, and it's like like that's pretty much the content you're getting is like he raps about being a pimp, and he does it very well. Like both the Bronson features are great. Like I actually like the Bronson and Laurent. Like Bronson and Laurent are always really good together, and Velvet Cape, that's a really good collaboration. Rough Town at the very end is a really nice surprise with Cormega, and it's also another one of the rare introspective tracks he would do. really, my main and also I feel like this is probably the last time, if you really want him over traditional drums, that you're going to hear that for the entirety of a tape.
Yeah, I can't really remember how much of this is drumless and how much of it has drums.
I mean, there is weird drumless stuff in the middle, but I think generally, like, this is like standard drum pattern stuff. Like Rough Town's a little experimental, but that's more in like a reggae patois sort of way.
Right.
If I recall, like he would experiment with like the singing stuff. He's not actually singing. He will sing in the future.
Yeah. Short-lived.
But yeah, this is like, it's a character exercise. It's him over more conventional production. It's not essential, but it's a good listen. It just, the content itself can get a little old. Like I was listening to this at work, and it was one of those things where it's like, I'm glad these are noise canceling headphones, because some of this shit, I don't know if I want people hearing me listen to it.
Right. To me as well, it's kind of like the summary rock album, you know, or like mixtape. It doesn't feel as cold.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah,
like there's definitely stuff in here like Ice Cream Man, which is not necessarily about ice cream trucks in the summertime or whatever, but it feels more like the stories he's telling are about like a different time of year than perpetually New York in the dead of winter.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I love the evidence beat on "Take Me Over."
I'm guessing. Did you listen to this one, Optimal, or did you skip this one?
Oh, which one? I didn't hear it. Cut out a little bit.
Oh, Pimpfire. I was.
Oh no, I did. I thought you guys were to move on to another one. No, I did hear this one. I like the Bronson track, or the second one. And I was. I don't know. I like. I haven't. It was a pretty early on like rock project. I haven't heard it in a while, and it wasn't one of my favorites. Like it was pretty good. But I don't have much to contribute besides I really like the last couple tracks. The Lord Finesse beat and the one with Cormega on the end is a really good song. And Cormega in general is kind of underrated.
Yeah, he's great.
So like his own,
I would agree with that.
His own like solo career, I think, is underrated, even though he doesn't have that much work, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, the album this is really great.
I mean, if I recall, the realness is very good.
Very good.
And his most recent one I remember, which is like 6 years ago, I believe, Mega Philosophy is what the RMM page says. That I remember liking that one. I don't think I've listened to anything in between, but he always shows up on features. Like he was the best thing on. Well, no, I don't know. He was the best thing on the Firm feature on the Nas album. That was probably AZ. But for whenever he shows up on a feature, I feel like he never sounds like a washed old guy. Like he always manages to have some energy and presence to him. So,
just real quick as well regarding the Lord Finesse beat, it's actually just the interlude from OC's Jules album, and he's just looped it. So I don't really know. Like, I suppose that's why it's like the mixtape, because he's used someone else's beat. I don't know if him and Lord Finesse.
Yeah, this was definitely free when it came out, so I don't know if you could still get it for free. It streams on Spotify, and I believe all the tracks are there.
Yeah.
Who knows with Spotify, but yeah, again, this is another one of those. Like, I will not say any rock release is bad. There are just some that are less essential than others, and I'd say this is probably on the less essential side. Like, you don't have a Ka feature on here, although Ka wouldn't really fit in with the content, honestly.
No.
Or the mood. Like, again, it's more summery. That's not really his like whole approach. I'm sure he can do it, but it's just not what like they do together. I think the one essential thing on here is the Sacrifice with the Mad Lib beat. And Rough Town with Cormega would be the other one I would pick. Both the Bronson. Like, again, there's no shortage of good tracks on here, but overall in his like catalog, I think it's one of his. But it was a free mixtape, so
and it's a
for what
really
it was,
good.
I think it was more than sufficient.
Yeah. And also, it cracks me up on the Sacrifice when he says something like about an hour sooner climbing out the sewer. How peculiar! Like, just again that really silly, like kind of low key humor, and just odd phrasing that you probably wouldn't typically hear from like an East Coast rapper.
Yeah, that's like the understated delivery sells so many of his lines.
That line's very MF Doom, actually, I feel like, just the way it's delivered.
Yeah, I think that my whole perception of Marciano went from being that he was Raekwon on Xanax to MF Doom that shoots people.
Yeah, pimp MF Doom.
More or less. MF Doom that pimps women and shoots people.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's, and he would really escalate this on Rosebudd's Revenge, which I think is his most cinematic album. And production-wise, his most impressive album. Not necessarily his most experimental, because I think there was stuff on Dark Horse and Mount Marcy that's more experimental than this, although this has its moments. And I think Kaos is the most well-produced album he's been on, and he didn't produce that. But some of this shit is just, like, well, you have, like, Lushness, like the title track. You have just stuff like Gun Sense, which is, again, he's kind of dipping again more into, like, reggae rhythms, and, like, you know, extended track times and, like, different time signatures and just able to rhyme over them. Like, that's a quality he shares with Doom. I'm glad you mentioned Doom. Like, Doom would always rhyme over weird shit, too. Like, he'd go over, like, an Herbalizer beat or like an instrumental or something. And he would always, like, people would complain, oh, Doom raps the same way all the time. But what you don't see what's so impressive is that he's able to do that no matter what the instrumental is, and it doesn't feel forced. He kind of bends the track to his will. Roc has that same quality.
And one of the weirdest, like, in terms of time signature beats on this is Pray For Me. I don't know what timing that's in, but it's, like, very odd.
Yeah, Pray For Me and Here I Am back to back. That's like a 10-minute suite of just, like, weird instrumental vamping. Like, he name drops Prince more than once on this album, and I think he also name dropped, like, Parliament. I think he was definitely in a headspace of listening to a lot of, like, 70s, 80s funk. And like that's what seems like it was informing a lot of, like, the sample choices and atmosphere on this album. And it all just kind of, it's all honed into this very theatrical soundscape. For the way I put it in my review is that this is his Rick Ross album.
Right.
He's really just blowing everything up to just, like, the most ostentatious, exaggerated possible way. And the way he plays the character is different. Like, he plays it with, like, an understated, dry sarcasm, whereas, like, you know, Ross has, like, lines that are more subtle, but Ross is, like, a louder character than Roc. Like, Roc gets his laughs by underplaying.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty much the exact opposite for Rick Ross.
But I feel like
Rick Ross is the obnoxious Roc Marci.
yeah, he's definitely like,
and, like, subconsciously so.
Yeah.
And I think that's why Roc Marci can make, for the most part, the sex songs palatable, whereas I never want to hear a Rick Ross sex song in my life.
You don't need to. We have those. Those exist.
I mean, there's one that we've discussed at length on this show that we will not go into detail about. But there's also, like, I don't know, Touching You with Mariah Carey, and, like, I don't know. There's, like, he would always include at least one or two, and they were no one, like, who are these for? And, like, they would always include references to food, like he was, like, George Costanza trying to marry food and sex together, and it's just like, it's just jarring. But, like, the thing about it was his obnoxious persona wasn't able to make those things entertaining, because first of all, it felt like he was making a weird mainstream concession, and any attempts at, like humor or character just gonna feel out of place because the songs are just, like, already weird compromises, whereas Roc is able to make them part of his whole character dynamic. The songs themselves are not compromises, so when he's adding these little weird character details, it's not like Rick Ross inappropriately mentioning food when he's talking about getting a blowjob. Like, I don't want to hear about Wingstop when you're talking about getting your dick sucked. I don't want to hear about getting your dick sucked, period. But you mentioning a Wingstop plug in the middle of it makes it even worse. Like, Roc is able to just, like, make it, like, the way he sells the lines, the way he constructs it, it's just, like, another part of this, like, dryly humorous, like, dark comedy. So he's able to get away with those tracks for the most part. But on this album, he's doing a lot of the same stuff aside from the sex stuff that Ross would do, and just, like, painting this character as, like, an action anti-hero. Just some of the most outlandish brags over some of the most opulent instrumentals.
Yeah. One of my favorite bars is when he's like, ordered some eggs, left the restaurant, might knock down your mom. She looks like Gloria Estefan. So like, how do you think like to rhyme, restaurant with Gloria Estefan? It's just, and that song Herringbone, where it's that real like dark piano beat, and it has the funniest beat switch when it's just like real silly loop.
Yeah, that's like a completely unnecessary beat switch, and he switches his flow entirely for the last 45 seconds, and he kills it too.
Killed me. Yeah, so good. This album actually has my favorite rock song on it too, which is Burkina Faso. Just that beat is like, it's like a vision quest in the desert. Like, it's so crazy, droning, psychedelic, like, oh, it's just so good, man. I love it. And then that's followed by Marksmen, which is a crazy, like, lush collab with Ka. And
Marksmen might be my favorite collab of theirs, although I'm really fond of their collab on Days with Yen Lo. I think the run from Gun Sense through to Here I Am is probably the most, at least up to this point, like, expansive experimental production he had done.
Yeah, well, it's important to mention as well that it's both his production and Archdruid's. So Animos and Don C did a lot of those beats on this album too. I think it's like 50-50 even. And yeah, just really like exquisite, lush sound palette throughout the whole thing, which is it would probably be my favorite rock album if the mixing was better. There's a few tracks.
Yes, okay, that was bothering the shit out of me, and I kept fucking with my volume on it. His vocals are too under the beat half the time.
Yeah,
too quiet. It's very it's hard to hear. It's legitimately hard to hear him sometimes.
Munsin sounds completely different on headphones as it does speakers. It's really strange. It's like quite jarring.
I really like Better Know in terms of that's like a really smooth, like, I think that's as close as he comes to making a party track. Like, and Move Dope, just a really fucking like hard as hell way to come into the album.
It is what it is. Fuck what it could have been. Read the bulletin and just some shit to put some bullets in. It's vicious. Yeah. Like, that's how you start a fucking album off.
That's the first line, right? Like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Fuck what it could have been. Read the bullet, and you're just some shit to put bullets in. Like, I'm just constantly amazed by the way he just plays with language and like flow, and his delivery is so cold. Like,
also, Marksman is ridiculous.
Oh man,
the way they go, that's my favorite collab of the two of them.
Yeah, I just said that. I'm thinking that's probably my favorite collab too, because I really like their collab on Yen Lo, but that's shorter. This one's more fleshed out, and they go back and forth on this, which you don't really ever hear. And yeah,
honestly, the collab on Descendants of Cain too.
Oh man, he killed it.
Yeah, that's probably neck and neck with Marksman for my favorite from them. They're that oh god, what is that? What's that song? Was that Fruit of the Spirit? What is that?
Sons of the Father.
Sons of the Father. Way different song title. But yeah, that song is I love how they play off each other on that song.
One of my favorite things about Sons of the Father is when their album dropped, it just said production by Roc Marciano, so there wasn't like an actual verse listed. And then when his verse came in, like my jaw dropped, because it was just the best surprise. I probably should have expected it, but
it's a great verse. Yeah,
great schemes on that one.
It's a great.
So another thing about this album, is when he starts to kind of I suppose do more beat switches, but also like outros to beats, where like on Gun Sense, for example, it's got that really extended outro where it just kind of like drifts for like quite a long time. All that stuff I find really cool.
Oh yeah, he's definitely, as a producer, coming into his own and like filling out the corners of the album at this point. Like, he was always doing the little details, like you said about like on Marcberg, he had like the little fucking up the loop bit that was very RZA, and I feel like on Marci Beaucoup, he's able to do like a Greneberg beat 100%, like Alchemist and O would have done. But here, he's taking his own, like, those are like him getting in other people's headspaces. This is him like in his own lane, really kind of expanding his palette and expanding what he was working with. Completely unrelated to that, but Pimpfire has one of the funniest endings ever, which gives the song its title, is the concept that he is going to put a woman under pimp arrest, which is like citizen's arrest, but he's a pimp. So, which is the way to like. I'm not doing it justice. And then like there's actually significantly more introspective stuff on the final third here. Actually, I mean, like even Pig Knuckles, which mostly is just like he tends to end the albums on like a bragging note where he's kind of sitting on his throne, sitting at his table, just talking his shit after what he's earned. But Pig Knuckles, like what gives it his title is he's like talking about what he had to get through to get here and how streety and like how black he is. He's black as Pig Knuckles.
And also what's the one I was talking about before with the really strange beat? Pray For Me. That's a very like autobiographical track as well, where you hadn't really heard him do that since Marcberg at this point, where the whole track is like him kind of talking about his come up. And that kind of thing. And also is that real funny bit where he's like, what you mad for? What you Macklemore? Shop with bricks. Like he goes in this like real funny like kind of like miniature rant, like I love that kind of shit.
Yeah, it's great. It's deadpan. It's like I think I mentioned this on the last episode, the Danny Brown Triple X episode, but it's the pro wrestling concept of you develop a great character by taking your own personality and inflating it to the heights that you can't do in real life. That's your character. That's how the best successful characters are, just enhancements or variations on what the person is like already. And I feel like that's kind of where Roc goes as a rapper, as an MC. Like he develops this persona, and that's why it works better for him as an artist than maybe it does for Rick Ross, because Rick Ross is more like borrowing from like movie concepts and tropes and stuff. And I still think it works for Rick Ross. Like we did a whole episode on him. I think we're a lot nicer to Rick Ross than a lot of rap fans on the internet.
I would agree.
But I think that in terms of like overall output, Roc's way more consistent than Ross. I think that he has like maybe one or two dud songs. Ross has like several dud albums. I think that Roc's approach is like definitely more like grounded in, like that's why you have those autobiographical details. Like Ross only recently started to learn how to actually thread those into his music. Like Roc's always been doing that, but like he still has this outsized character that's like, he's lighting the chronic on the tail of a comet. Like that's how, so yeah, he takes like these superhero action hero things and blends them in with his own true, like his own story to create this persona. And it's feels rooted in something real while being something elevated and entertainment.
For sure. Another quick thing I want to mention about this album as well is there's quite a few instances where he like abruptly ends songs, but it's like he does it really well. Like on History, the last line is something like, hold the Mac 10, spray it, legs levitated, your family is devastated, and then that's it. Like he's really good at doing that, and I think he's doing that a lot more from this album onwards.
That's another Doom trick, I think. Just like kind of knowing when to button the song on, and I think that kind of goes together with the multis that he's so fond of doing.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I love this one. I really wouldn't change anything about it except for the vocal mixing. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I thought either I had a bad copy or I had my computer set up wrong, because I didn't really remember it being that annoying when I first listened to it. But I was listening to it today and I was like, I really wish I could hear this better.
So it reminds me of something similar where the first time I heard, I'm not like a Young Thug, I don't listen to Young Thug or anything, but the first time I heard Young Thug was on that Lifestyle song. I could not tell what he was saying. Then I heard more of his music, right? And I couldn't tell if either he was enunciating better or if my ears had adapted to like his vocals. And I think with this album it's something kind of similar where it's like I've heard so much Roc Marci that I can make out this through the shitty mixing, but I don't know if if this is their first rock album, it's probably going to be a bit of a struggle. So yeah,
I can make it out pretty easily, but it's annoying. Like I feel like it should be clearer. So I feel like if you weren't accustomed to listening to Marciano, and especially after listening to stuff like other projects of his where he is clear, it is more noticeable as well. But it's also not like a situation with like some Blue albums where you actually have to like go into Audacity and fix it to be able to fucking hear it. So it could be a lot worse.
Yeah, it's not Al Divino level mixing, is it?
Al Divino mixing his shit in a large metal toilet and then charging $1,000 on Bandcamp.
What a flex.
Real quick, because I don't think Caleb listened to this one. Roc did a project with, unknown to me, a rapper named after, I believe, an old baseball pitcher, Therman Munsin, called Sabbath, which has some ICP-ass cover art if I've ever seen it.
It does.
Pretty cool cover art, though, in that way. This guy is Black Irish. If you couldn't tell from the shamrock on the cover, he raps about it a lot on this album, that he is Black Irish. So that is his hook. It's a pretty good album in that it's like... it's Roc Marciano doing like rock beats that are like rock beats, like more guitar influenced on that sort of end of stuff, kind of closer to Greneberg, closer to like Muggs or Alchemist in that way. So it's very much Roc Marciano instrumentals. So don't believe the guy in the comment box who says it's not really a rock project. It is. But in terms of the lyrical content and the rapping, nowhere near the presence of Roc. Like he's very kind of like Mayhem Loren or Percy P, like power punch rapping, hitting you with a lot of shit, but he's not as dexterous or lyrical as those guys. Still like interesting enough, but he still gets washed whenever like, you know, Roc shows up, Guilty shows up. There is one song on here I want to focus on. Do you know what song? I bet you know what song I want to mention.
So I hadn't listened to this album at all until today. I did a crane listen, and I got to that song, and I was like, I can't get through this, and I had to skip it. So
there is a song on here called January Jones, aka Sacred. It is a song about the dick being sacred, and it's named after the least liked actress on Mad Men. It's baffling. It is fucking. I don't understand it. I don't get it, man. It also kind of derails the album because then you have like a weird Paranoid track and a skit, and then the Guilty track kind of brings it back together. It's not essential. It's by far probably the least essential thing we're going to cover in here. I actually liked it better than the Stove God album because I like these beats better than the beats Roc put on the Stove God album. But Stove God's definitely a more interesting MC than Therman.
Yeah.
So I would say that, and yeah, I feel like Stove God gets a bum rap, whereas I think there's probably a pretty good reason you haven't heard much from Therman Munsin since this.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't ever recall seeing Roc promote this album, so it might have been a thing where this dude paid him to get a whole bunch of beats, and that was that. I don't really know what the kind of backstory is. I hadn't heard it until today. And
you can get the instrumentals to this very easily, by the way. So if you don't really want to deal with the average MC, you just want to hear the rock beats, it's like essentially just as good as having another rock beat tape. So,
okay. Cool.
So yeah, I would probably just seek out the instrumentals. The MC is nothing special. It's
he kind of reminded me of Vinny Paz, but like this mix of.
I mean, he and Vinny have one thing in common: they really don't like gay people.
Yes,
that was a layup.
Like
that's too easy.
Yeah, that was slow pitch softball, but.
It was just like kind of tough guy rap vocals. He had some good lines, I think. I'd probably have to listen to it again, but I thought the rock beats are pretty cool. I liked the beat on the Guilty Simpson track was really good.
Yeah, the Guilty track's probably my favorite thing on there. And he's not a bad rapper. It's just he's not super interesting. I can't... Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me to recommend unless you're really into that specific niche. And it's like, if you are, then again, like I feel like there are rappers who do it better. Like again, like Mayhem Loren, I think has a lot of projects there. But from a Roc Marciano fan standpoint, the instrumentals are cool. It's a sound that you only hear once or twice on his proper album. So to hear him doing a whole album of that, like even on his beat tape, there are only one or two beats that really prominently feature like that fuzzy guitar sound, that more like alt rock metal, almost metal kind of approach to it. And that's like the dominant sound on this album. It's dark. It's like rock driven. It's the sort of like beats for like hip hop listen, like people like dudes who listen to hip hop who say, "Oh, I don't like rap, but," and then they put out a Cage album or something. It's like those sorts of beats. But so it's very interesting in that aspect, and the rapping is not bad. So it's like again another completist project. But like don't don't take time from listening to an actual rock album to listen to this.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Now we go on from that to the sequel to Rosebud's Revenge, RR2, The Bitter Dose, which probably his weirdest album.
Yeah.
For sure. Do you know what I liken it to? It's Roc making an anti-pop consortium album. It's just like very strange, like sort of kind of like I don't know, like sound effect beats. You know, obviously like Bed Spring King, but just like weird, like CVS has that weird zapping, crazy. I don't know what that instrument is, but yeah, just lots of very field shit.
there's one beat that that has some sound effects in it. That is unfortunate.
Yeah, I guess we have to address the elephant in the room, which is Roc's attempt at remaking the classic Wale and Tiara Thomas song "Bad," where Wale a squeaky mattress he was fucking on, where Roc declares himself the Bed Spring King. And to let you know that he's the Bed Spring King, he sampled, in fact, a squeaky bed spring for 4 minutes, and it doesn't fucking stop. And it's fucking man, it's like the most grating pop. Like people who complain about East, like go fuck yourself. Right. Like that is not what an annoying beat sounds like. 4 minutes of a squeaky ass spring and calling that a beat is what a. And the thing is, the raps are like they could be great. I'm too distracted by the beat, but they're not great. I know they're not great. They're probably.
I don't know. It's like it's some pretty good technical rapping, I think. Like to actually rap over the Bed Spring.
Well, I mean, like it's a flex in that. Yeah, it's like the Roc can rap over anything. Flex, like yes, I think that he pulls that off. The song itself, the song in and of itself existing in and of itself is a flex. That doesn't mean I ever want to listen to it again. That doesn't mean it's not my least favorite Roc Marci song because it's 4 minutes of that loop with him just doing nonstop sex lines where they just it gets old. Like the joke gets old. Like it feels like a joke that plays itself out. And even though it is technically impressive in that he is able to do it, it's still just purely grating the noise.
It also comes before one of the best songs on the album, and it comes after a few of the best songs. Like it comes after the like Bohemian Grove, Corniche, CVS, Sax Fifth run, which is a great run.
Well, I mean, Major League I'm not fond of either because I think they kind of overplay the baseball metaphors on that one.
Yeah.
Like Bed Spring King and Major League back to back are 2 times where it's rare that Roc like devotes an entire track to a concept. And in both cases, especially Bed Spring King, it feels like it's just like beating it to death. Like more knowledge is verse on Major League than his because it's just like, okay, we get it. It's like the streets are like baseball and like, pitching drugs is like pitching a baseball.
Yeah.
Like,
okay, I'm going to slightly defend Bed Spring King. I like the funk guitar on the beat. I reckon that sounds good. And also, I haven't heard this Wale song, but it does remind me of Lil Ugly Mane's Looking for the Sucking, which has like a beard chorus.
Well, that's a play on the 3-6, well, not 3-6, but just the Memphis rap track that's been remade by a million different Memphis rap artists.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but I think originally it's a it's a DJ Zerk song, right? Or no, I think it's a Squeaky DJ Squeaky song, and Skinny Pimp's done it, and DJ Paul's on it. Yeah,
we need Ghost to somebody ask Ghost in the Discord because I'm not the one to ask about this. But
yeah, I think it's Looking for the Chewin' is the song title.
What a fucking title!
And it's been made by a bunch of different like Memphis rap artists.
Yeah,
they're repurposed. Yeah.
But as far as this album goes, Bohemian Grove, misspelled on RYM. Somebody get on that. It's not Bohemian Groove. Bohemian Grove through to Sax Fifth is one of the best runs he has on any album. Yeah. And then the Power is one of his best closers. Like this is full of like, and yeah, CVS. The beat on that is just fucking weird outer space shit. It's like as weird as anything Danny Brown has ever rapped over. Yeah. It's just so like there's that, and I think the sax fifth beat is pretty weird too.
Yeah, the sax fifth beat is like vaporware. It's really strange. Like it's like it sounds like it's from like an aerobics instruction video. Like
no, there's a lot of the instrumentals on this have that sort of like Roc pulled them off of like dusty VH. Like it's dusty in a different way. These are like dusty VHSs. Like he's digging like different loops. Like, and he's still rapping about the same stuff, but there's like not as much of the introspective bent that you got on Rosebudd here. Like he's kind of going back to like, again, like there are the tracks where he goes in on themes a little bit, but mostly this is just like punchlines, good punchlines, and like establishing his persona. I think Corniche is probably my favorite thing on here, or Power. Yeah.
This album is like very funny, and I think the ad-libs are his funniest for sure. Like, I know some haters don't promote, but some's like, I'm the GOAT, and then there's just like a bat noise. It's just so dumb, but so good. And also, bitch fucking, I look nothing like that. I look like God, you know, like when she compares him to Roc Marciano because he's wearing like a bandana on his head. Just like all of those really funny ad-libs that just... They kill me, man. They slay me.
No, it's what's the oh gosh, what's the bar on Corniche where first of all, amazing beat. I mean, we talked about that, but goddamn, that beat is so smooth. But what's the one where he's like it's after the Is
it when Action Bronson says he's butt naked playing Tekken?
Oh man!
Oh my god! Oh, you know the one where he's like, I mean, and I guess this is like not, you know, he says the Brussels was colorful like chunks of fruit. Stop riding dicks, choose a new muscle group.
Dicks are a new muscle.
Don't forget to lick nuts too. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but he pauses before he says lick nuts too. If you listen to the song, he like pauses right before he delivers that last line before action comes in.
Oh no, like that's one of the things he does that's so great is like he shares with Doom as well as the pause in his lyrics when he's like doing jokes.
And it's
also Action Bronson saying 2 guns just for symmetry, bitch. I had that shit on me when I was playing Little League. Yeah, your boy is first class. I've never seen the middle seat. Like,
I think there's a good reason. I think there are other reasons to be fair, I think there are other reasons Action Bronson never had to sit in the middle seat.
Wow. Well, this is tough. First, in the Michigan episode, we height shamed Kevin Hart, and now we're weight shaming Action Bronson.
I'm not trying to fat shame anybody. I mean, if Action Bronson's lyrics are to be believed, he's always doing gymnastics, getting in and out of the whip. He's all doing all types of bat flips and shit.
True.
Yeah. Always
on
looking
Power,
gorgeous.
I would say that Roc Marciano manages to one up Lil Wayne because he beats the pussy up like Rodney King.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
So he beats it like a cop.
Now he's managing to like marry 2 Lil Wayne unfortunate lines there because Wayne beat the pussy up like Emmett Till, and then he also had Mrs. Officer. So in a way, this is like really clever.
True.
In another way, this is also just really gross. But
another thing. Oh, sorry, about this album that should be gross, but is actually not at all, is the song "Happy Endings." That's like that's a feeling.
We were all expecting the worst there.
What did you think like the hook was going to be, Patrick?
Well, this was before he hadn't sung yet because he doesn't sing until "Behold a Dark Horse." That
he kind of sings on "Happy Endings."
Blesses us with his singing voice. But I mean, I did hear the beat. The beat does have a little bit of a quote unquote Eastern flavor to it. So I was afraid that we might get like some sort of like Full Metal Jacket sample or something, or some sort of unfortunate vocal sample. But it's just like
this is like the Killer Priest song that was inspired by
the struggle of the native people. Yeah.
Oh man, that song's so strange.
I'm still waiting.
But he puts on like a fake
challenge. Now I guess the Killer Priest challenge I did have a long-standing challenge for somebody to do Rockets Nebula on the show. Now I guess it would have to be both Killer Priest albums since he dropped the second one. With
the second one's real good too.
What's up?
That Third Eye and Technicolors, I've been listening to it this week. It's really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's got some cover art.
It's got some garish shit going on. Yeah.
Speaking of, we're not going to go back down the rabbit hole again of cover art, but that is like some straight up, like straight to Kindle single, like Hatchet Brad fucking cover art.
I love the new age like arc of Killer Priest's career though. It's great.
Oh yeah, where he became like if Jay Electronica was rapping over Rain in England.
Yeah, and also he has a podcast and he just like gets on all these just like new age people, and it's just the most incoherent shit you'll ever hear.
Does he ever interview like David Icke or something?
I wouldn't put it past him to do that eventually. Yeah. What else? Oh, another song on this, just to go back to Bitterdos, Kill You has a fucking vicious line when he's like, what's he say? He's like, maybe a major lady, a widow, with the bathwater, don't throw the baby out the window. That's a real good line. What else? Also, does anyone else think that the beat to Tent City, the second track, sounds like a Madlib beat?
Which one?
The second track, Tent City.
I can see that. I'm trying to recall it, but yeah, I feel like some of his loops do have a Madlib quality around this period. Like, I mean, I'm sorry.
There's also that song Muse where he's just talking over rapping over the vocal sample. It's like really prominent. That "Hey baby," you know that one?
Yeah. He has a definite one of his things he likes to do, which I guess he shares with Madlib too, is he just like lets the loop like he just lets unadulterated loops play and goes over them, and he's pretty. There's actually an art to that. Like, it seemed lazy. Like, I remember the first time I heard somebody do that, it was either Redman or Ghostface. I'm just like, this is so lazy. Like, you just took an old song and rapped over it. But you have to know what part to pick, and as a rapper, producing yourself, you have to know how to rap over it. And it's just more Rock knowing how to rap over everything.
That's fair. I think he... with this
or it's just laziness and you just liked the song and didn't feel like making it into a
But I think with this album, it's definitely one of his... It has songs in it that are some of his most accessible songs, but I think it's one of his least accessible albums, at least at this stage in his career. Just because he makes some interesting he makes some interesting stylistic choices, like that we've talked about, where it doesn't sound like stuff he's done before. And I think, in general, there's always a small risk to that because you could throw long-time dedicated fans off.
Well, I think Rock's pretty confident his audience is going to follow him wherever he goes at this point, and this is him really starting to test his audience musically. These were influences that were already there. Like Rosebudd, he was already pushing in this direction, so it makes sense that the sequel would push that much harder.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it's less cinematic than the first one, or it's cinematic in a different way. Like I said, it's got that fuzzy 80s VHS quality to it.
For sure.
Whereas the first one was more of like a 70s, like blaxploitation grindhouse sort of thing. Maybe not grindhouse, but you know what I mean. Like it had a glossier aspect to it than this one does.
This is actually, I think, his lowest rated on RYM, which I find...
It is a little misleading because it has more...
Under Marci Beaucoup? Under Marci
No, Marci Beaucoup is his lowest rated.
But is this the second lowest rated?
If you don't count the Stove God album, then yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just his vocal albums, stuff he did. Vocal.
Yeah.
I find it kind of surprising because this is the one album I thought RYM would love because it's so fucking strange. And, RYM loves experimental shit. Well, not, often really gets into experimental shit, but not so much this album.
I think that effect of something like a CVS or a sax is counterbalanced by Bed Spring King. I think that got a lot of press.
Yeah, that's possible, actually.
Which, you know what? I'm going to take you up a little bit on your defense of it. And that you're right, the guitar is good. And you're right in your review where you talk about how intricate his rhymes are. Like, he really does put a lot of effort into beat, like finding a pocket in a song where there's no pocket. So I appreciate what he did with the song, even if I never want to hear the song again. Like, even like the way he raps lines I don't want to hear over a beat. He manages to make a beat work for him that's like the most unappealing possible beat.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Does that sum up this album? Any other thoughts on this one? Or?
Power is maybe his best closer.
Oh yeah, absolutely is. Yeah, it's funny that he like manages to make it's quite like an emotional sounding song, even if he is just talking, just shitting on people on it, you know. Like.
Yeah, it's just like typical end of the album, just bragging. But he's got like a very like emotive sort of. It seems like something Ghostface would pick to do a song about his mom or something almost.
Right.
Like very deep.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say saccharine sound to it, but emotive sound to it. He just uses it for the same cold bragging.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I really like this. I can see it as being. I think Corniche is one of his best and most accessible songs. But I think otherwise, the best stuff on here is some of the least accessible CBS, Sax Fifth. I guess Power's accessible.
What's that other track as well? Let me just check. The Source. That's a real weird song as well.
Yeah, the beat is really weird on that one. Yeah.
But he's real vicious on that.
He sticks on the really weird shit in the middle. Like, definitely, like, between, like, after Corniche going through to, like, Kill You, I guess, is, like, where all the really weird stuff is. And then, like, the end, it gets a little bit back more towards the stuff he was doing on the first Rosebud. So.
Yeah, that's weird to think of it as a sequel.
It's a very inventive album, and he would kind of continue pressing in that sort of experimental direction with a Behold a Dark Horse, which has probably my second favorite rock song. I don't know, the Black Thought track on here really just floored the shit out of me. I listened to it 100 times. Wow. And I think that might be behind 76 as my favorite rock song.
Damn.
It's really up there. I think that's great. And I really love Consigliere, too. On the other hand, it also has... He finally reconnected with his old Flipmode buddy, Busta.
Yep.
And Busta wants you to get off his dick.
Yeah. No, get on my dick. Yeah.
No, get on my dick, bitch. Trojan horse.
Yeah. Have you guys seen that video of Madlib? He's like doing a DJ set and he puts on Congo from this album?
No, I have not.
Oh, it's great. He's just really getting into it. I love Congo. It's got that really cool drum pattern on it, where it's like not him adding drums, but it's the drums on the actual sample kind of thing. She does quite a lot. But yeah, this was a surprise album. They just announced it one day and it came out on in a few hours after that. So yeah.
I mean, I think the first 5 tracks on here that's another one of those like he has runs on his albums I've been trying to point out where it's just like some of his best work. Like I think the first 5 tracks on here is like rock fucking solid. Yeah, but it loses me just a little bit. I think the Knowledge collabs are not as like they always underwhelm me a little bit. I don't think Knowledge is quite like I've listened to his solo stuff too, and he strikes me as like I think I described him as like you want to go out to dinner, but you can't afford to go out to like the Roc Marciano restaurant. So you go to like the fast casual Knowledge restaurant and like, you know, it's kind of the same experience and you get a lot of the same like things you like about Roc Marciano, but it's just not the same level of quality. And that's kind of how I feel about him. And so his track back to back with Trojan Horse, which just has the goofiest fucking hook.
Amethyst is really good. That's another I think Don C or Animos did that one, the 5th track. That one's really smooth and dreamy like CGI, as he says. What else?
I
listen to this one as much, I think. I listened to it a lot when it came out, and then I don't know, probably went back to Rosebuds too.
I was kind of the same way, and I didn't really get around to this one so much for the homework. I did re-listen to the tracks I liked, which were the Black Thought track and the end track Consigliere, where he ends on like the best note of any Roc Marciano album, where he isn't playing. He goes to P.F. Chang's, eats your food, leaves without paying, which is such a flex. It's well constructed in that I think it balances the weirder shit. It's not as overwhelmingly weird as Rosebudd 2. It's got more of the opulent stuff of the first Rosebudd and kind of like the cold crafted style of Reloaded, but it's not quite as top shelf as those, I guess, overall. Like, I don't think there are as many like great punchlines. Not to say there aren't great punchlines, or I don't know. I'm not really articulating this very well. It's just like a good rock album, but not a great rock album. Yeah,
and people often, it's one that got a lot of traction as well. Lots of people were saying it was their favorite rock album, which, I mean, you can obviously make the case for any of his albums being great. And this is a great album, but yeah, for whatever reason, haven't listened to it as much. But one thing worth mentioning is Alchemist's beat on Fabio, where it has the beat switch, is really good.
He has probably the best line about referencing Snapple caps ever, where that's a fact, Jack. It's under the Snapple cap, which is better, which replaces Earl's Snapple fact you rather whack as my favorite Snapple related punchline. Yeah, it's good. I don't have too much to say about it. It's not as funny. It's kind of sort of does the same stuff as the last few. But not as potent, because it's like the weirdness of Rosebudd 2 and like the cinematic scope of Reloaded put together, but it's not as potent as Reloaded or as funny as Rosebudd 2. But it's still,
I think it's a
good way to put it.
Still in the same ballpark as both. Like, I would absolutely listen to it. It's a treat to hear him and Thought together. Like they did that only one other time. Like they're together on the Alchemist EP, right?
Yeah, on the Breed EP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get that again.
One thing, this is kind of him like returning to a more nocturnal sound, where I feel like Rosebuds 1 and 2, they're kind of like I don't know, like a psychedelic holiday on a tropical island or something. Where this is more like a kind of night out kind of album. That's the kind of mental image I get of this one.
Yeah, it's kind of more back in the noir rap sort of mode of like that started with Marcberg that he would kind of refine on Reloaded. I see that as the cinematic. When I say cinematic scope, that's kind of what I mean by it. You would think there would be a little more psychedelia stuff on there with like the biblical title and everything, but I think that he just read that Bill Cooper book, Behold a Pale Horse, and just kind of liked the title and just ran with it. And it's kind of the 90s rapper thing. So, because he really doesn't even like that, it's not really followed through. Like, he doesn't have too many like biblical lines. Like, he doesn't get any, like, that's not really a theme he plays on too much here. So it doesn't feel like that's anything more than a cool aesthetic choice, not so much a thematic one.
It's also kind of like his Victory Lap album, where it's like, another one. Like, I've just dropped a really good album after 2 other really good albums, and it's been the space of 2 years. It's like that kind of thing. It's like him flexing, basically. Like, watch this shit,
Right. And but then after that, I guess this is where he started to get the criticisms. I think that he was putting out the same stuff over and over, which is not true, because this doesn't sound anything like the Rosebudd album to me necessarily. No. Like, it has aspects from it, but as a whole, it's not like if you played them, like playing them one after the other. I can tell when they change. I can tell what if you put them on shuffle, I can tell what tracks are from where. Yep. So I don't think that criticism holds water, but I think that maybe he was feeling it a bit, because he stepped out from self-producing himself and from occasionally cherry-picking other producers to actually handing over to a whole other outside producer for his next project, Kaos, with DJ Muggs. And this is my favorite Roc Marciano album.
This one doesn't get talked about much by Roc's fan base, I find. It's kind of swept under the rug for some reason.
I don't understand that at all, because I feel like this is, even more so than Reloaded, just like a perfect refinement of his style. Maybe it doesn't get talked about as much because it's Well, they're the trap tracks, I guess. People always like to talk about those. It's like, oh, he goes over 2 trap songs on this. And first of all, he does it great. Second of all, like the trap beats as they are not just like typical. Like it's not like when like Kool Mo D went over the trap beat earlier this year and picked like it's not like he picked like a YouTube trap type beat or something. These are like very. This is a legendary producer doing a really skilled variation on a modern style.
Yeah. So, and much more better than when he did dubstep.
Yeah, we don't talk about the details. Help it.
The thing about that's sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the two. I think the first one is White Dirt. I forget what the first trap. The other one's definitely called a lick because I always get that stuck in my head all the way. Just called a lick. Called a lick. But it's like he fits himself into like the typical like radio trap rhyme scheme so snugly. Like he's like his punchlines, like he doesn't have to adjust his style at all. But I think my favorite stuff on here is probably Dolph Lundgren and Shit I'm On.
Yeah.
Just like the instrumentals just sound like both elegant and dirty at the same time, especially the piano on Shit I'm On just like sparkles. And his lines are just every line is fucking quotable on this. Like there's one where he's like, I forget what he leads up to, but it's like something about being like a ghost in the room, and then he stops and he goes, boo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, cop the ghost, the house was spooked, or something like that.
I copped the ghost, the house was spooked, and then he probably goes, boo. The deadpan humor on this is all over it. Like, it's. I think this might be even funnier than Rosebudd too. He has the line about you have to be about his hairdo from a blimp. Yeah. He's just the brags are out of this world. I can't say enough good about this album. It's really well constructed. It's like about a half hour long. It's incredibly replayable. Just I don't think he repeats a flow on the whole thing either. Like I think every track has a different flow.
So 2 quick things about this album. When it came out, I think I soul-seeked the vinyl rip, and the vinyl version has the 2 trap songs on it, but the CD one doesn't. It just has Called a Lick. So I don't know why they did that, but whatever. And what else was I going to say? Oh, and I just want to shout out someone in the comment box for Shit I'm On described it as sentimental pistol whipping music, and that's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's right up there alongside He Tried to Play Me by Off Killer Season. It's the most
so much. But yeah, this album as well, it's like it's structured in a way where it's kind of like one kind of soul song and then one kind of like dark grungy kind of song typically, like it kind of goes back between the two of those kind of templates. And yeah, just Muggs, it's him taking rock style and then injecting his flavor into it as well, and it's just such a good mix. It's very murky.
Yeah, it's both murky, but like there's a lot of space and clarity to it too. But like some of the stuff he does on there, like I forget, there's one track that has like a sitar sample on it. That reminds me a lot of what he did on the last Cypress Hill album, Elephants on Acid, which I think is very underrated. That's like another really great psychedelic rap album, and just the way. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's on Wild Oats, which is the third to last track, and it's got that real like deep kind of dirgy guitar on it, and with the sitar as well. Just
right, both Wild Oats and Wormhole have like dark, distorted beats to them, and in the middle of that, you have Shit I'm On with just like the twinkly piano, the contrast between the dirty stuff and the really pristine stuff works incredibly well, especially with Rock's sense of humor and delivery, and just it's just an airtight package. I fucking love this album. I think that maybe not your first Rock album, because I think you need to get acclimated to his style before you can really appreciate what he's doing here. But like if you're just starting to get into him, you might not understand why Caught a Lick or White Dirt are as impressive as they are, that he's able to shift lanes like that. Also, I think that as much as I love whenever he has something like the Black Thought feature on the last album, or obviously any of the Ka collabs, part of the reason this is so powerful is it's like the one Roc album where it's just him front to back.
Yeah.
He's the only voice you hear.
Yeah, it's great for 36 minutes or whatever, just all rock. And one thing, I think he reuses a line on Wormhole from, maybe it was something on Bitter Dose, but I feel like given that Roc has such like a expansive output, it's kind of inevitable that he might repeat a line or repeat a scheme somewhere down the line.
Yeah, he actually has a line on here that he repeats on Mount Marci about the plugs, Paz and Trugoy.
Yeah.
Which that, like, it does stand out to you because he so rarely does it that when he does it, it's like stands out a bit like a sore thumb. But, I mean, it's not a big deal. Like, oh, well, he reused a line once or twice. Big deal. You could even call it a callback, but he's allowed to do that given how much he's not recycling lines all the time. So, that's really all I thought I could be a little more articulate about that. But that's definitely my favorite. I would say my favorite, this or Reloaded. I really love this. I mean, I really come to love Muggs' production style. I think he's incredibly versatile. I think that people should check out all of his collaborative albums. Like, he manages to make it work even with rappers I don't care about. Like, he could have a fucking Vinnie Paz feature and I'm still going to think the song's hot. And so imagine what he can do when he has somebody like Roc who's really right. Like, as he says on like Dolph Lundgren, this actually has to be a masterpiece. I think he actually sat down and was like, this is going to be like, you know, he really consciously tried, maybe for the first time since Marcberg, to write something front to back that was going to be viewed as his masterpiece. Like, because that's why he kept the running time down. That's why. So, yeah, that's my view on that. So,
there was something else I wanted to mention about that album. Let me just look at the track list. I was just going to say, just in terms of DJ Muggs, he's been on a tear with, last year he had a really good output. I haven't heard all of Winter yet, but he's got an album coming out of Rome Streets, which I'm really excited about. So look out for that whenever that drops. And
I think, does he have something? He has something in 2020, like in 2021, like named Ramelsey. I forget who that's with. If that's with is either with Divino, Fahim, or Estinak. I'll look it up.
Who was it? Maybe he just dropped one with Divino. I think
he dropped one with Divino that was a bit of a disappointment. It's a Flea Lord, actually.
It's Flea Lord, yeah.
It's gonna be the Ramelsey album. I'm way behind on all the Flea Lord stuff.
Yeah, same.
Because that's what happens when you drop an album a month. Yeah, the Muggs Divino is good, but it's like the Muggs beats are really good, and Divino kind of just gave it like an average effort for him, which is kind of like, it felt like it deserved a little more than that. It's still good, but considering how much, like, you know, it felt like Divino could have put that same amount of effort on one of his Bandcamp albums, like that he recorded in the Metal Toilet that he charged $1,000 for, not just for like an actual DJ Muggs concentrated release. But anyway, so moving on for Roc, since I feel like again we're lapping the 3-hour mark at this point, as we tend to do, and we've still got
plenty of time.
4. We also have
Pimpstrumentals.
Pimpstrumentals, which there's not too much to say. This came out, I believe, through Adult Swim.
Yeah.
So this was hard. It came out through Adult Swim, and then it got pulled off the website like a week later.
Yeah, I could never get it to load on the Adult Swim website, but someone had ripped it to Soulseek, and now it's been officially released in digital format. It's okay. I kind of feel like, because a lot of Roc's production is just looping one thing, having like a beat tape without him like adding drums or something, I think that's the one instance when maybe that formula doesn't work as well, if that makes sense. But it's got some good beats on there. I really like the beat for Smash and I think New Money. And the last one, what's the last? Burnt Spoons is really weird. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just like a nice little bonus because he just released 3 great albums in 2018, so why not drop some?
Yeah, it was like a victory lap thing. I think the biggest disappointment about this was that he was teasing there were 2 more when this came out, so he dropped this, and everybody's like, well, what's the next one going to be? It's going to be the Ka album, right? And there was no 5th album. Like, so this just kind of like pulled the football away. But it was, I listened to this for the homework, and I listened to it at the time, and it's like, for a free beat tape, which is what it originally was intended as. It's a nice little bonus, but really there's nothing super exciting on here. They feel like unfinished demos. Like they do not feel as fully realized as the beats he went over on his proper albums. That said, Cool Points, I think, is the one really weird stone's throwy thing on here that I really appreciated. And Burnt Spoons too at the end as well. Those are the two most out there beats. And none of these beats are bad, but they do feel like simple loops that he lets go for like 3 minutes and doesn't really do much to. So it's like a look into his creative process, and you can picture him rapping over them, or you can, rap along to him in your best Roc Marciano voice if you like. But it's, again, in the non-essential pile, probably his most non-essential thing overall, if you're really into his instrumentals and you want to hear what he thinks a beat tape sounds like, that's cool. But honestly, you get better beat tapes out of like the instrumentals from the Therman Munsin album or the Marcberg instrumentals. Those are actually better beat tapes than this. This is just kind of like a little like thank you fans bonus thing that is nice, is actually circulating out there. Because again, for a while, I don't know what happened with it on the Adult Swim website, because nobody could get it to play, and then all that was floating around was the sole secret for a long time. So, but now you can hear it on Spotify. So,
and just two quick things about this tape as well is that it reuses the beat from HBO, the Mark Comey track, Marc Marci. That beat's on this beat tape.
Which one is that?
I can't remember what it's called, but it's the same beat that Mark Comey used on HBO that Marci produced.
Mark Comey didn't pay for it in the first place, so rock.
Also, there's
that'll just get me 10 more downvotes.
There is one rap song like with vocals on it on, I think, maybe the digital version that got released later on. So yeah, but that's pretty much it. Yeah,
it's curiosity. Check it out. Yes, I curiosity. Oh no, I'm getting feedback. Sorry. Okay, I just want to let that pass. All right, so yeah, that's Pimpstrumentals. Seek it out or don't. It's really not the most essential thing you'll ever hear from him, but I think Cool Points is a really cool beat that I'd like to hear him do something with at some point, but I don't think he's ever going to do anything with those beats. Marcielago has way cooler album art than the album itself, which is not to say the album's not good, but that's some amazing fucking album art.
I think Marcielago has his best technical rapping. Like, lots of the schemes are really intricate. Lots of like really long verses, things where he'll rhyme like through multiple beat switches, like on Tom Chambers. Lots of just really long, lengthy stuff. It kind of feels like he's got all of the stuff that people liked about Marcberg to Kaos, and just put all of that like rapping kind of into one place. It's kind of like a best of in a sense.
I mean, I think Puff Daddy is hard as fuck.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. That's probably my favorite song on the album.
Yeah. I love the we're going to shoot it with me and a shaman. We're going to take your soul and analyze it. That's a great Stove God Cooks line. That's the kind of line that made me kind of, pay attention to him, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Stove God's good on both his features. I think the Ka track is typically excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I did not find the beats as interesting on this one. Maybe that's why I didn't gravitate towards it as much, but I should have re-listened to this one a lot closer, because I just remember I'd listened to it a few times and I thought the rapping was great, but I didn't think it was overall as interesting as some of his best stuff in the past. But Puff Daddy is probably the Ka and first Stove God tracks are the best. I remember really liking Molly Ringwald as well.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really strong, like, not the first track, but it was like a strong, like, early track to get things going.
There's the Alchemist beat on there as well. What's that song called? Wait a second. Where he says, "Turn your living space to Camp Crystal Lake." Soar. That's a real.
I love that line. That's a great line.
I like Boozy Fade with Westside Gun, has a really cool kind of psychedelic beat to it. And Richard Gere has the "Went off the grid to chill like a ball with a tall meniscus" line, which is like crazy. And And also this God Loves You near the end with Stove God on the hook is again like him kind of doing a personal song as well, like a, you know, making it through the struggle type song. So that's cool that he put that in there, especially like after finishing your 10-year run.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think like it's kind of a fitting way to close the decade for Roc with a record like this. I mean, just because it kind of encapsulates what he's good at. And I wouldn't say it takes like a ton of chances, but it doesn't have to do that.
Right.
It's very comfortable, and that's a good thing. I think it's a good album.
And I really like on Tom Chambers, there's a great trade-off between Knowledge and Roc, where Knowledge finishes his verse by saying, "I don't think you're in tune," and then Roc jumps in with, "I'm on a different frequency," and you see something like the blunt we hit was laced with PCP. Like, I think that's just real sick. Lots of really slick lines, like even by his standards, I feel, on this album. But maybe because he's like, the songs are so long a lot of the time, or, you know, it's probably quite easy to miss a lot of the shit that he says because it's just hitting you with so much of it.
Well, I like that you mentioned Richard Gere, because I was trying to remember what track had the one line that really stood out to me when I was listening to this at work the other day. And it has the line, "Listen, kid, I'm still on that pimp shit. My shooter's like Larry Bird. He from Port-au-Prince. He not from French Lick." That line,
that's hard.
He's got some slick fucking. We'll get to it in his most recent album. He has some really slick like sports reference lines. And that's got to be up there because, like, you know, shooting like an NBA player is a cliche. That's fine. So then he makes a Larry Bird reference, which is like a throwback reference, not the most obscure reference he can make. It's a little slicker, but then he manages to draw in, like, you know, Larry Bird French Lick. That's a bit of a deeper reference. And then the way he raps, he's able to rhyme like, wow, Port-au-Prince with French Lick. Now that's fucking tough.
Sure. I also like that he got Willie the Kid on this album because Willie the Kid often gets Roc on his projects. He's on Pimpfire, but, like, you know, he hasn't been on a Roc album since then, so it's cool that he got him on there because I feel like Willie the Kid's quite underrated. He's got, you know, really good output of work. Occupies a similar space to Roc as well, where it's just like, you know, just fly shit, but doing it really well. So, yeah, I thought that was cool. That's a good collab on Bomb Shelter.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably... I'm not giving this enough credit that this is like, because it doesn't take so many in the way of chances, it's just him doing what he does pretty much perfectly throughout. And he doesn't, I don't know.
It's kind of like not surprising anymore that he's put out another great project.
Right.
Like, it's consistent to a fault almost. Like, he's almost got like the currency syndrome where people just say, like, you take him for granted because he does the same thing so well over and over. And like, much like Currency as well, it's like he raps about the same stuff, but over and over he manages to keep it fresh by the way he does it through like just skill and charisma. And like, it's not what it's like the argument I make for Pusha all the time. It's not what he says, it's how he says it.
Yeah, I feel like we need to get a Pusha and Roc song at some point, right? Because like Pusha T's been jumping on Benny shit, and he's obviously got his ear to this kind of stuff. So I'm surprised.
Like, he was definitely like, Push did the song on with Benny. Yeah, you said Benny for a second. I thought you said Beanie, like Beanie Seal. But no,
that also would be a fit, though.
But I mean, it's like kind of sort of, well, when I listened to Daytona reminded me of Reloaded a little bit in terms of what he was going for and like just the level of like, I think when I learned to appreciate Roc is when I learned to see a lot of what I liked about Clips and Push in particular in Roc, and the way he like crafts his persona and says the same shit in a more clever way than his contemporaries. And just so carefully crafted too.
For sure.
But yeah, just trying to pick out like I'd just be picking like great lines out of this. It's probably, well, you're right about it being like a technical. I think that maybe Kaos is a little more impressive as a technical rapping performance because it's so condensed and tight, and it's him front to back. But in terms of just like intricate multis and like not in terms of structure, like song structure, but just rapping for rapping's sake. This is probably his technical peak. A lot of stuff he does here is really like he's got the same sense of humor punchlines, but the way he gets to them is like more intricate than ever. And like he's got that like there's one line he has on here. I think I'm again quoting Richard Gere. That's a really good song. It's got like a ton of great lines. He's like, do me like he completely switches from whatever he was talking about before. It's like, do me a solid, come suck what's behind the zipper. It's like, do you ask for a blowjob by asking somebody to do him a solid? Like that deadpan sense of humor is so fucking like it's still as strong as ever.
And that song is that entire song is him pausing as the beat pauses and then jumping back in. So that's like probably the best example of him using that space, which he often does, you know?
Yeah, he's really unafraid to rap over anything. And even though he's not taking he's not rapping over weird shit like CBS, like something as weird as CBS on this album, that doesn't mean that these are like conventional beats for anyone else.
For sure.
He's still doing stuff that would like a much less skilled MC would have a lot of trouble with.
Yeah, in particular as well, that track "Say La Vie," which is a Animals beat, is really weird too. Like that's like quite hard to explain. I can't really think of anyone else going in on that beat, you know. But he's found the way to do it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to check more Archdruid's Animals stuff after this episode, too, because I think that I'd fallen off on checking them, and they've been a really big part of his sound that I hadn't acknowledged. So, I mean, like, obviously they were responsible for large parts of, some of the best parts of Reloaded, and you said also Rosebudd 2, right? Or Rosebudd 1?
Rosebudd 1 and 2, yeah.
1 and 2, right. So we're getting closer to the end here, unless anybody has anything to say about Marcielago.
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, so we've got this was one that I guess pissed people off because it showed up on Roc's RYM page, and people are like, it's not a Roc Marciano album, even though he produced all the tracks on it. Is Stove God Cook's Reasonable Drought. And this is one that I liked when I heard it earlier this year, and I listened to it again for the show, and it didn't leave as much of an impression on me, but I think I was just burnt out on listening to so much rock at this point, because I think it just didn't really resonate with me, because it's definitely very good, but I didn't feel like Stove God was as commanding of a presence as he is on Features over the course of the whole album. Yeah,
I've only listened to this a couple of times, but I don't think anything on it stood out to me as much as Puff Daddy. But I don't know, maybe I need to revisit it.
It kind of grew off me a little bit too.
And it's got like an awkward sex song on it as well. And yeah, I don't know, it's good though. I feel like is it Breed of Life or something? There's some really good beats on there. Just real quintessential rock loops. But I don't know, probably need to spend more time with this album. But I feel like he's kind of got he's got crossover appeal as well. Stove God Cooks, I think.
Yeah, he's definitely. I mean, clearly other rappers see something in him. He's worked extensively with Westside and stuff, but I feel like maybe not for a whole project yet.
Right.
Because I found him entertaining on Features. I thought that he was good on that Westside project where people thought it was annoying that he kept showing up, but I was like, I enjoyed his contributions to that. But this one, just like the first time I heard it, I was like, this is pretty good, but I couldn't tell you anything about that I liked about it. And then I listened to it again today, and I just went in one ear and out the other. Where I wouldn't say anything on it was bad, but again, it just left no impression on me, which seems contrary, because I thought he was a pretty strong personality on Features, but not so much on this whole project. So.
Right.
But yeah, if you like Roc's production, still check it out. I don't think there's an instrumental version of this one, sadly, which is weird because Roc's normally pretty good about getting those out. But still, it's worth checking out. Like, I think this guy's best work is ahead of him now.
Yeah, I feel like it's a really great breakthrough project for sure, but I just haven't revisited it as much as I typically would for something rock related.
So that brings us to his Roc's proper release from this year, and really he had like a period where he wasn't putting shit out for a while, and then he's been pretty consistent. Like 2018, he put out 4 albums. 2017 he put out. So yeah, Marci Beaucoup was 2013. Then he was pretty quiet until 2017 with Rosebudd. If you count the Therman Munsin album, that was 2. 2018 he put out 4. 2019 he put out Marcielago, and now 2020 he puts out 2 albums. So he's insanely prolific. Like,
for sure.
Like, I mean, I don't think that. I mean, he had a quiet period in the middle, but for like his consistency level too, like we've not covered a single bad album. Like the 2 albums I would say are at least the 3 that I would say are least essential that we've covered are a beat tape that was free and 2 producer projects where he was not what I would say was the problem with the project.
Right.
And we get to his most recent project, Mount Marci, which is just, once again, he's back into doing more weird shit. Like, he's still artistically restless. And he's still not, but he's still also, like, the same level of technicality and craftsmanship as ever. Like, he has not fallen off a bit. Like, he's just ridiculously consistent. So, because I think that this has it has some of his best collaborations ever. Like Broadway Billy with Keith, I think it's better than anything on the Luv NY album. I think it's a super weird, challenging beat for Keith. And you're going to give Keith in 2020 something like that, you're taking a real risk because he doesn't even know how to sometimes say on beats that are conventional at this point, depending on how much he cares. But he really showed up for that feature. The Bronson track is a great collaboration. The Schoolboy track is one of the best Schoolboy verses in recent years. Like, he really just showed the fuck up for that one. It's a collaboration I never thought, like, I don't think they'd worked together before. I never knew I wanted this collaboration before, but that's just tough as hell. And then I guess, much like we had to talk about Bed Spring King, although I'm going to be a lot kinder to this song, we have to talk about, would you say Wicked Days is the weirdest Roc Marci song?
Yes, I would.
Because it's, even before you get into the whale, like the Trent Truce part, whoever the fuck Trent Truce is, like, the beat itself is like nothing he's ever gone over before. It's straight up dialect stuff almost.
Yeah, I would say it kind of in a weird way reminds me of those latest clipping horrorcore albums where it's just like lots of empty space and just like weird noises. Like this whole beat's just like bass and like rattling noises, right?
More or less. It reminds me of like, yeah, I don't know if clipping's the best. Like, dialect was the first thing I thought of, but I mean, some of the more like avant-garde type clipping shit probably also applies to, because it was like a lot of like rattling metal and just, it feels very industrial and buzzy and amusical and completely not like, I mean, like, he's done weird shit before. Like CBS felt like it was coming out of like a completely different headspace than anything else he'd done before too, and this is different than that. And there's stuff on here that feels like beats, the sort of beats he would go over in the past, like those dark noir, cold weather beats, but they're just more distorted and weird somehow. I don't know.
It's desolate. Like, it gets really desolate near the end, I feel, with the production on this album.
Definitely. I feel like it feels more apocalyptic than his album that was named after the apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah, I think also on Wicked Days, he's got a great line where he says, "I'm rocking Lizard, the skin on the kicks is Hillary Clinton."
Yeah, it's so good. And he's just talking about Queen Elizabeth as well.
Yeah. This is absolutely flames. I love that. But I also, I did mention this pre-taping, but Downtown 81, which is a great Jake One beat, but also is the most disrespectful song to Jalen Rose that I can remember in hip hop. Like, Jalen Rose just, I mean, there's no guarantee Jalen Rose is ever going to listen to this song, but he just gets demolished on this track. That's
yeah, I mean, like,
it's wild.
Gibbs remembered Kobe in his own way on his album, and Rock chose to remember Kobe by just dunking on Jalen Rose.
How Kobe would remember Kobe, you know what I mean? Kobe would be like, yeah, fuck that, remember my 81.
Exactly. Kobe wouldn't want you to cry over him. Kobe would want you to remember that. Would remember clowning Jalen Rose with 81 points.
God.
So that is what I was referring to as like the meanest basketball punchline that he has. And there's, again, no shortage of mean punchlines on this. He references the Garbage Pail Kids in one of the titles, which I thought was I don't know if the song has any Garbage Pail Kids punchlines, but that's just like a really off the wall, like sort of, that just shows you like the kind of reference base that he has, that he would use that as and he also has like the other thing about Roc Marci is that he has some of the most groan-inducing puns ever. He mainly saves them for plays on his name, as album titles, plays on his name, but the Eye of Horus with spelled like core, like that's right before his track called Steel Vagina.
That song's vicious too.
No, that song is hard as nails. It's not really like about steel vaginas.
Garbage Pail Kids, I think that's probably that followed, what's the song after that? Let me just check.
It's that, then Crockett and Tubbs, and then the title track,
Yeah, so Garbage Pail Kids, I kind of feel like it's kind of like a sequel to White Dirt, where it's like this kind of detuned like guitar, but this is just like the stripped back version of that, without like all the crazy buzzing noises and shit. It's some real empty streets, like, garbage blowing across the street type shit. It's really cool. I'm a big fan of that song.
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like the last third of the album, more or less, starting with the Kool Keith feature, is like, it gets, like you said, increasingly more desolate and apocalyptic, and like I feel like it builds to Wicked Days, and that's just kind of like burning everything down, and like the last three are just kind of like rubble and like garbage just kind of like floating around, like, it's like always like a desolate New York street corner, but now it's been like completely ravaged, and maybe this is like sort of the right soundtrack for such an apocalyptic feeling year. Like, you're not going to get like topical like social consciousness, bars out of Roc Marciano. He's not going to, like, he'll reference COVID in like a very clever sort of way on COVID Cough, but it's not going to be like a direct, like, socially addressing the pandemic sort of thing. But I feel like he manages to tune into the mood of the year, the unique mood of the year, very dark mood with the instrumentals here, even if the lyrical content is mostly still the same. I think that this is probably, in terms of the sonic palette, he's working with one of his darkest, fringiest albums, and that reflects the time in which it was made.
Yeah, and it's probably his most bass heavy too. Like, it's lots of low vibrational tones going on, just in general throughout the production.
Well, the Muggs album, having listened to it in the car a lot, has tons of bass on it too, and that's another reason why I think the Muggs album is my favorite, is that it works equally well on car stereo and headphones. It feels like it's engineered for both. This one, I do agree, it has like that blown out bass sound to it, where it's like not like a club bass sound, not like a groove sound, more like it's trying to like damage your speakers.
Yeah, I mean, there was kind of stuff like this on Marcberg, and that was probably unintentional. But yeah, on this album, it seems to be, for a lot of the beats, the main focus is the bassiness, which is pretty unusual for Roc's production.
I did not know that Chuck Strangers was responsible for Baby Powder. That was an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think he does the first beat. Maybe there's two beats on there.
Yeah, it has a switch in the middle, so maybe he just does the first half. But
yeah, this will be the first time, well, the most, the one album that he's produced the most of since Marcberg, which is all him. There's only two outside producers on this album.
Yeah, Jake One on Downtown and Chuck Stranger. Yeah, and I think that's very telling that it is so like dark, and I don't know, it just feels like a culmination of a lot of experimental stuff he was doing while still staying true to what he's been doing since Marcberg. And as a rapper, he's just as on point as ever. Can't say anything bad about his rap performance. Just cold punchlines, references, like one of those rappers who spends an hour insulting you, the listener, and you're grateful for it.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. I also want to say my favorite track is, I love the track Garbage Pail Kids, where it talks about how this chick's going to run if he calls her over a guitar. I also like the song Pimps Don't Wear Rabbits, which talks about how those hating need to quit over a grimy beat.
I see what you're doing.
These are weird observations that you're making here. I feel like I've heard them before.
You don't like the.
I don't know.
I can't do that.
Tubs, which talks about how real bad boys move in silence over.
We got to do one of these an episode. Like, it just has to happen.
It inevitably comes up. Like, even when you're not trying to read one of his reviews, it just happens to be in front of you. My favorite part of this review, though, is like you actually get an opinion of his, an actual opinion.
You do.
He's talking about while the song "Wicked Days" talks about how no angel can stop the bullets over a murky beat, and the Trent Truce feature is whack as fuck.
My favorite part is like when he's talking about a song, and the title of the song is X, right? And then the description for the song is just the title, basically.
He doesn't do that on here, but it's like, he talks about the song. He doesn't do it on here, but like the song "Trench Coat Wars" is about trench coat wars, going to war in a trench coat.
Yeah, Crockett and Tubbs is just a plot synopsis for Crockett and Tubbs. Like, talks about Miami Vice over a year.
Oh my god. It's just
Garbage
like
Pail Kids is a song about collecting cards.
The song "Wicked Days" is about some wicked days over a gritty trap beat.
So I guess to wrap it up, we kind of already discussed along the way, but I always like to go with, because it's not always the same thing. What would your introduction album be for Roc, and what's your favorite of his?
Before we do that, can I just have some last notes on Mount Marci?
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be an episode if I didn't cut the guest off inappropriately to try and end the episode. So, just in addition to the intros, it's something I always do. But yeah, feel free.
I just want to say that the beat on Butterfly Effect is really fucking heavy. And also Crockett and Tubbs, there's a really like interesting the way he plays the sample on that with like the high pitched vocal, and it like kind of keeps going up, like the pitch goes high and then drops back down again. That's just a really cool feature of that beat. And also, like, I love the rattling noise. I don't know if any of you guys listen to what was the album? An Unknown Infinite, the album.
That was something Ultra, something King Ultra,
King Vision Ultra, and
King Vision Ultra, and
Amani. If you listen to that song "Scrapes," the Elucid song,
one of the best verses of the year, by the way. That Elucid verse is fucking amazing. But yeah,
it's a great album, Unknown Infinite. But if you listen to "Scrapes" and you listen to that Roc song, I don't know, just like similar thing with that kind of weird like rattling noise being a main focus of the beat. I don't know, I find that shit really cool.
Yeah, I feel like the bass. I'm glad you mentioned the bass lines, because I feel like the bass lines on like Butterfly Effect and especially Broadway Billy. I think the way the bass and the piano work together on Broadway Billy is really like menacing in an unconventional sort of way. Like, I feel like there's a lot about this album that's just doing stuff he did in the past, but through like I said, a weird distorted lens. Almost. Yeah,
I read a really funny tweet someone said where they're like, this Roc album starts off normal, and then Kool Keith shows up for Tab of Acid, and he says, "Ignore the barbecue stains," and then from there it just like gets really odd. Which I don't know. I feel like that's accurate.
I think that's a good way to describe it. It's like a acid rap rock album almost. Like, for all of like the psychedelic stuff he's done in the past, this is the one that feels really genuinely fucked. Because like the other ones were like more controlled experiments. This one you can actually feel it kind of going off the rails. And even though Downtown 81 Downtown 81's probably the most conventional Roc song on here, I would say. It's the closest thing to something off Marcberg or Reloaded. And even that feels a little bit off. And then sure. like the vocal mixing on COVID Cough too, like the way the ad libs are like crowding the mix. They're funny ad libs too, and like and that might just be because it's a Schoolboy song, and like that's how Schoolboy likes his vocals to be done. Like he's always bouncing all over the mix, but that also feels like it's different territory for him too. And I feel like the vocal mixing on throughout the album too is very much like all in a like denser, and it's not like the same sort of clarity you had on Chaos or Reloaded. Like I think those were the big production achievements previously, and this one feels like it's going for a completely different sort of headier effect.
For sure, and there's that weird distorted vocal effect on Baby Powder, where he drops he pitch shifts it like quite low, which is really kind of monged. And also, I love Trenchcoat Wars, just the way that like the sounds are so atmospheric, but they just keep repeating. It's like really immersive on headphones.
Yeah, I think this album is one of the. I probably would rank it in the top 3 or 4 rock projects. I think it starts out immediate, like Patrick said, with Downtown 81 and COVID Cough, which is my favorite Schoolboy verse in at least 3+ years. He fucking snapped on that track. I don't know where that's been.
I don't know. It's not as good as Chopsticks.
Chops. I was gonna try to do the Travis Scott hook, and my voice can't go that high. So.
Travis Scott shouldn't have tried to do the Travis Scott hook on Chopsticks.
No. That was a mistake for everybody involved there. But yeah, I don't know. I think it just has a lot of different hallmarks of what makes a Roc Marciano album good. Like it has that callback to like Reloaded and Marcberg era. It has like even the Rosebud's Revenge kind of era of stuff. Like, I mean, the easy choices are like the action track, and I would even say a song like Broadway Billy could have fit on like maybe like that Chaos that project, I think, just because to me Roc's career is broken up into a couple of different components. Like you can break them up into segments rather, and I think that like Rosebud's Revenge, like the first segment is like Marcberg to Marci Beaucoup Pimpfire era, and then it's like Rosebud's Revenge, like Patrick said, he took that break, and then I think the third segment is kind of like starting now this new decade with Mount Marcy. So yeah, I don't know. Look, Roc is so consistent that a lot of his albums I kind of come up with the same talking points, but I really enjoy the vast majority of his work, and he's a really like essential rapper. I'm glad that he's been doing this and continuing to, impress us all for the last 10+ years.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like this album feels like both a culmination and like a fresh start. It doesn't replace again, I think Chaos is probably my favorite, possibly because I've been listening to it so much lately, possibly because I think it's because I value Muggs so much as an artist too. But I feel like it's just his most finely honed project, like the most, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, and like it's funny because I'm trying to it's his most articulated project, I guess. But I think that his most interesting, that might not make it his most interesting for other people, because some of what makes his other projects great is that he goes off on like weird little tangents, like the Greneberg album, or like even something like Bedspring King. Like that's something that I might not be there for it necessarily, but it's impressive that he was able to do it. And again, like I was talking about how he's better at doing this character sketching than Rick Ross. Bedspring King is certainly more, it's a regrettable sex song that's technically impressive, as opposed to 100 Rick Ross regrettable sex songs that aren't technically impressive. So even when he makes like something that I consider to be like an artistic miss, he does it in a way that's still impressive because he's that compelling of an artist.
He's an auteur.
He really is. Like, and he's got an incredibly funny juvenile sense of humor. Like he has so many lines about making pussies fart. More than you would think. And because I don't know how soundproof my basement is, I've tried to not quote too many of them, but We did not record this one outside though, so I can't traumatize children with that. I've traumatized children recording this show before though.
I feel like it's very appropriate as well, given that you're recording this in a basement whilst we've just discussed Mount Marci, which is like the dingiest shit there is.
That is, and I'm wondering, do you think that? So I guess the other question I like to ask is, where do you think the artist is going to go next? And like, since I said this, since we all seem to think this is like a new beginning for him, do we think he gets dingier and darker from here, like, or more dissonant, or where does this seem to be lead? Like, where do we think Roc goes from here? Do we get the fucking Metal Clergy album?
Oh man, God willing. So we still need a Metal Clergy album. We need the Alchemist one, and at one point he was talking about doing an album with Madlib. So.
Everyone has mentioned an album with Madlib in the past 2 years, and I don't believe any of them until I see them. I mean, I guess the Fortet one's a reality because the single from that just dropped on Spotify. It's pretty good. Like, it sounds more like a Madlib song than a Fortet song, but that one, I actually thought it doesn't. I didn't see Fortet's name on it, but then Horst told me that's what it was, and I could hear it after the fact. But like, I don't count any promises of Madlib albums ever. Like at this point, they're like when Kanye announces an album, it's like, all right, I'll wait and see on this one. Because think about all the Madlib albums we've been promised that
are coming out the day after Never.
Yeah, the Black Star album.
Yeah. Mad Villainy 2.
Well, I mean, Mad Villainy 2 is just.
Yeah.
I don't think he ever actually promised that. Like,
no. The Black Star album was the first example I could think of like things that were said to be happening and allegedly confirmed.
The thing is, when you don't expect anything out of Madlib, you get nice surprises. Like he came out with that Jahari Masamba Unit album, which is like him and Kareem Riggins doing like Yesterday's New Quintet Jazz, which I don't even remember if he ever promised that or not, but it actually showed up. And since I wasn't expecting anything, it was a really nice little surprise. So yeah, but as far as Roc goes, I'd assume the Alchemist thing is going to come out eventually. Probably already recorded, because Alchemist is actually good about releasing things he says he's going to do, or he's actually smarter. He doesn't necessarily announce them; he just releases them. Like he didn't announce Alfredo; he just put out a single for it. Yeah. And so, like, I think Alchemist is like Madlib if Madlib didn't sit on everything he ever made. Alchemist actually releases his music.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, in terms of sound, I don't know. Like, I don't know if it's possible for him to push farther in the direction that he did on Mount Marci, but he probably could. Like, I don't put anything past him at this point.
Yeah, I suppose it all kind of depends on, like, what his next focus for, like, record digging is, because a lot of his kind of Rosebudd's Revenge era stuff is just, like, obscure psych rock and stuff like that. So... yeah, I don't know. It depends on what he's obviously gets inspired by, and if we're going to get more like layered production, or if he can go more experimental. Because I feel like he can't just do an album like Wicked Days. I feel like that would alienate his fan base.
No, I feel like that's also, it's as good as, like, I actually think Wicked Days works very well on like a lot of people. But then again, I also thought East worked very well. But so, like, I guess I'm the minority on a lot of these things. But I think that what I'd like to see is within his circle, if he's going to continue with the same sound, I'd like to see him work with somebody like Big Ghost. Maybe I'd like to see him do maybe like another producer collab album with like some, like he did with Muggs, with maybe somebody like Big Ghost is the first name that came to mind because I can't think of anything they've really done together. Although I'm sure he's been on a track that Big Ghost has produced. There's no way he hasn't. Like, that seems way too.
Well, Big Ghost's doing the album with Knowledge of the Pirate, so I imagine we'll hear that soon with a rock feature on it.
Oh, no doubt. So that there'll be at least that. And as far as Roc himself goes as a producer, aside from his own material, I'd like to see him try and work with somebody who isn't just like the same sort of like, I mean, yeah, Stove God has a little more personality than your average street rapper, but I'd like to see him work with somebody weird. Like, maybe.
I mean, he has a song with Billy Woods on History Will Absolve Me.
An incredible fucking song. Body
Great
of Work,
song.
the best. That's, yeah, I can't believe we didn't really talk about that either. And that was, well, I guess when that came out, when I was starting to go through my Billy Woods thing, when I would have listened to that, I wasn't quite as into Marciano, so I revisited that a lot later. But yeah, the fact that he's able to hang with Woods on that is incredibly impressive and shows that he is really underrated as like a, because you don't think of Roc, like we've talked a lot of praise his lyrics a lot on the episode, but it's a lot in terms of like he has funny punchlines or really great flow. But like when he wants to actually like, if you want to break down like genius style his lyrics, he can give you that verse if he really wants to. It's just he almost never chooses to do that. That's one of the verses where he does. Yeah. Because he realizes he's up against somebody who's like looms really large with who like has a lot to say. But I'd like to see him work with somebody weird, like even like weird in terms of like Al Divino, something like that, or Eskimo.
Right. Well, I do know that if you follow or if you look at his manager's Twitter page, Jazz UN Gang, he sometimes mentions what like they're working on. I recall him mentioning that there was a Roc, Marci and Earl sweatshirt collab, and also he was working with Anderson .Paak.
Anderson .Paak?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that will probably lead to the, if No Worries is any example, if we combine like No Worries and Roc's like, you know, tracks for the ladies, this is probably going to be the most misogynist album of all time, but it will probably sound really fucking good. So
it will
kind of let them skate on that. What you probably won't let us skate on is taking up 4 hours of your time. So we're going to wrap up the episode now. I guess we kind of came to a consensus on what our favorite, like you said that your favorite Roc album is probably, can't believe I can't remember because you didn't say it was Marcberg.
It is Marcberg though.
It is. It is Marcberg. Oh,
it is Marcberg.
So you still don't think he's topped Marcberg his whole career?
He probably has like. Yeah, it's a tough one. I just feel like I think me liking Marcberg it's probably more of like a nostalgic thing because it was what really got me into his shit, and like it's probably the one I've listened to the most. And again, just the way that it kind of tells more of his come up story, admittedly through him just talking a lot of shit. I think that's what really sticks with me. But I do think probably his best album is Reloaded. It's just it's a mood album which I'm probably not always going to play. More so because I find the second half is especially like, you know, within that mood. So yes, Marcberg is my favorite for now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I don't think I have a definitive favorite, kind of like I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, but I think push comes to shove, I might say Rosebudd's Revenge 1, just because I was much more in tune with Roc with that album than going forward.
Yeah, like I said before, I'm probably going to go with Kaos, but I would agree that Reloaded is, like I said before, also I'm going to agree with myself, but I'm also going to agree with what you said. Reloaded is probably his best album in terms of craftsmanship and as an entry point as well, because I think it shows him doing what he does best at its highest level with like the occasional like feature or outside contribution that might like bring in some like the Q-tip beat or something that might bring in an outside listener who doesn't have anything. Whereas the Muggs album is just pure unadulterated Roc and Muggs the whole time. So I think that that Reloaded kind of makes a little bit of, I don't want to say concessions, but it reaches out of his circle just enough that I think it would be a good entry point. But personally, I think that Kaos hits for me the most. But I think it's telling about him as an artist that we have like 3 different favorite albums from 3 different periods in his career. And we can all safely say that he's never put out anything whack. So, yeah, he's an incredibly consistent artist. Hopefully, if you've listened to this episode, you've gained some, you know, insight into his career, some stuff that you maybe didn't listen to that you have to check out now, or that you didn't like at first that you have some incentive to give another fresh listen to. So, Thoughtfoul, been great having you on. You know way more about Roc Marci than us, so always good to have somebody to give us more insight. Hope to have you on again soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for inviting me. Hopefully I was somewhat coherent. But yeah, it was really good. Very enjoyable. So shouts out.
Don't need to worry about being coherent when you have my introductions and transitions. You look coherent by comparison. Like an average looking person's a giant when they stand next to a midget. So that's how that works. But This has been Living Off Borrowed Time, and our outro music is Stagnated Pace by Can Kick. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
It ain't gonna never stop. 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 It ain't gonna never stop.
By man. But when the time is right, perhaps the greatest revelation of all time will dawn upon us.